Two. Hello. Hello. Hello, everyone. What is up? It's me, Rob. Need Rob to talk me through these FIBA games? Yeah, I get so Canada and the US both lost today too, didn't they? That's not great. It's too bad that Canada couldn't make the final. That would have been a great final, actually. What's it now? Serbia and Germany? Is that the final? Is that the final in FIBA? I mean, Canada made the Olympics. Pretty much anything beyond that is kind of gravy. They're playing with house money there. They're going to the Olympics, and I think that's the main thing. I think obviously the players would have liked to win the tournament, probably, or at least get a medal, but that's kind of unfortunate. But the Olympics will be the real test. Whether if they can get, like I was saying, if they can get Jamal Murray on that team, they're going to be in a good position to go on a little run down in the Olympics. I don't even remember where the next Summer Olympics are. I didn't think Canada would win, but Germany, come on, man. Germany, led by new Raptors point guard, Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder, who I've never really liked. There's something about him that just I find him irritating. Perhaps, I don't know what it is, but happy to have him on the team. And he played very well in this tournament too, so I'm hoping that he's going to be able to. They just lost Fred VanVleet. They weren't going to pay Fred VanVleet the amount of money that he was kind of expecting, and he got from Houston. Kind of looking forward to seeing what Dennis Schroeder does, plugging into that spot, that empty spot. Yeah, that'll be cool. Looking forward to basketball season coming back, actually. I guess it's pretty soon. Now just a couple of weeks till the NBA does come back. I'm looking forward to it. I've really missed the NBA since the finals. I think I had forgot that the Bucks fired Budenholzer, but no, I guess that makes sense. I've really missed Friday, Rob. Thank you, Brian. I have missed you. I've missed Friday, Brian. Friday, even. No, it's good. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be back on a regular schedule.
You've just become an elite member
my goodness.
of the Friendship Triangle.
Brian, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. What a wonderful start to the stream. Goodness. Thank you so much. Well then. We're coming in hot. We're coming in hot, folks. Hello, Marty. How's it going? Get in here, everyone. We're live. We're doing it. That was a very satisfying iced coffee. It's not quite as miserable here. It's nowhere near as bad today. It's cloudy and it's been rainy, so it's very humid, but it's not quite as brutally hot as it has been tonight. Last night there was a nice little breeze. Finally, after I finished podcasting, and we just released a new podcast episode last night with Adam Johnson. We did that last night. Really good episode. And then after that, I made some dinner and just hung out next to the open window. There was a nice breeze coming in. I marinated some chicken thighs and made some chicken thighs with kind of a stir fry, with rice and vegetables and stuff. And sat by the window, got the cool breeze coming in. I watched The Equalizer. I had never seen that Denzel Washington Equalizer movie. Threw that on because I saw the new one had just come out. Are we going to talk about the Macklemore-ish, probably butchered that cover of Oliver Anthony's new song? I cannot say I heard that. I cannot say I heard the Macklemore-style cover of Oliver Anthony. You know, I tried a new, hey Diego, I'm drinking Pepsi Max Lime. Good to know. I'm glad to hear that. That sounds pretty good. I'm trying out a new fizzy water brand. As you know, folks, I'm normally a bubbly boy. But got this new brand, the Aha. Is this just a Canadian thing? I'm getting the Ahas. This one's good. This one's orange grapefruit. I think what I like about them is they've got like combo flavors. The bubbly is just, pineapple, strawberry, lime, grapefruit, orange, whatever it is. They got a number of flavors, and I enjoy the flavors. Don't get me wrong. But this one's like an orange grapefruit. Orange grapefruit, aha. I got a case of that. And a lime and watermelon. Lime and watermelon, aha. And honestly, they're both very good. I had both of these last night. They're very refreshing. And they come in those, like, longer fridge packs, which I like as well. So I don't know if I'm switching. I don't know if I'm fully switching brands here, but like, I gave it a shot. I gave Aha a shot, and I was not disappointed. The lime watermelon is really good. It's really good. Seriously. They have Aha, a little store called Target in the US. So it's kind of an obscure niche thing. Those do look tasty. I mean, I just drank my iced coffee. Maybe I need to crack open an Aha though. If you've come for his beverages, well, you'll have to take on me first. Oh my. Oh my goodness. LaCroix punching the air right now. It's weird. I've tried LaCroix. I never really had an extended period where I was getting LaCroix. I think LaCroix tries to be a little too fancy. I don't know. The one that I really liked when I was in the States a couple weeks ago was the Polar. Polar had like a orange cream, like an orange cream soda, fizzy water flavor. That was good. You're a Polar man, spell check. That's good. Yeah, Gwynny is a Polar. Polar is good. You can't get it here. I don't know why. LaCroix Delusions of Grandeur. Yeah. Yeah, they were in there first. Really, and were they even in there first? For me, I thought it was Perrier. Perrier started doing like the lime and the pamplemousse and that kind of stuff. You know what? I think I've talked myself into it, cracking open an Aha right now, frankly. I'm into Spindrift, and I want to get zesty with it. That I've not even heard of. This is like just some totally outrageous stuff that I've never even heard of. For my fellow LaCroix haters, I don't know if I'm a hater of Sunny Sola, but I definitely think it's mid. I think it's a mid fizzy water. Is Aha the caffeinated kind? I don't think so. That would be funny to just find that out. Yeah, that's really good. I might be switching. I don't want to alarm anyone here. I may be switching, though. I'm really thinking about it right now. Oh. Very refreshing, very flavorful. Season 4 has arrived. I'm making a Target run later today. Might have to give this Aha stuff a shot. I give it my stamp of approval. The Rob Rousseau seal of approval. I should make my own brand of beverages. I should just do like the drop shipping of beverages. If I just like got a case of these, but then just slap my own labels on them. That's legal, right? I'm pretty sure. You can just buy a product and just put a new label on it, then sell it as your own kind of artisanal thing. I'm pretty sure you're allowed to do that. I should do that. We talk a little bit enough beverages on this show. I should have an official beverage, an official Rob beverage with my face on the can. Is this Steve Kerr talking about Dennis Schroeder? Oh, without Steph and Draymond. That does help, yeah. Oh, who even is that? It's not Jeff Hornacek. It's not Bill Paxton. What coach is that, Dakadoon? It's Vinny Del Negro. Yes. For the record, I got it before I saw the reminder. We'll give you that one. Thank you. I don't know. I think Kerr's a good coach, though. Like, that Team USA team was good, but it's not like one of those teams where you've got LeBron and Durant and like all the very best players. And they should be able to beat Germany still, obviously. But the international game is different. And it's a different kind of style. I think Steve Kerr's still pretty good. But yeah, it does help to have like one of the very best, or when it comes to the Durant team, two of the very best players to ever play the game of basketball on your team. That will generally increase your likelihood of success if you're going to coach an NBA team. Doesn't have the Riley squat, though. Nick Nurse had a very good squat, too. I'm looking forward to the new coach this year as well. Love Nick Nurse, obviously. Definitely was, when it comes to the Raptors, was time to make a little change this year, I think. Looking forward to the fresh start. Richmond, North of Richmond remix out now. Do I want to hear this? And is it Canadian? I see the Canadian flag. I don't think I can do this, Dimitri. I spent enough time talking about and thinking about that song. Now it's gonna be stuck in my head again. That whole time we were talking about this for like days, I was thinking about this song and singing it in my head for weeks.
They ask my political views while I search for their hidden agendas. I don't got an answer, I try to remember the devil divides. Pressure appears from our peers. Those arguments waste our time while helping to push their lies, so fuck political views. I got common sense. I know God made man, and the sun sets on a life where we focus on things that we cannot control and accumulate so much regret. By the time we decide to live, we're practically already dead. So I go to sleep with the thoughts of 45 years living in debt, 45 years can't pay rent, 45 years just for a pension I'm too old to enjoy and go spend, 45 years working and slaving for rich men with no time for my family and friends. Then I wake up and pray that it ends.
Living in the new world with an whole soul. The rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control.
Descendants of Adam and Eve, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
It's the same thing as the other guy that says he's talking about how he doesn't want to have political beliefs, but you're talking about political beliefs though. Both of these guys are like, I'm not into either party. I'm not into, whatever. I'm not into either side. But it's like, you can't do that though. That's not a thing.
God out the schools, our kids don't know what to believe. From 6 to 8,
and this is all taking God. Like this is just right wing, similar to Oliver Anthony. Oh, I'm not left or right. Like no, it's actually you're just repeating this kind of Reaganite shit. Then it's right wing. This guy's talking about taking God out of schools and being this super like fundamentalist view of like creationist view of society. But no, it's not political. Neither left nor right, but forward. Yeah, it plays the sample. I'm a centrist, so let me tell you about those Democrats. Yeah.
Gen Z gets taught by their phones with forced feeds that get sponsored and paid by companies. That's how they attack us. It starts with the youth. If you lie enough, you'll convince anybody the lie's the truth. So telling these kids they can choose their own gender at ages they can't even tie their own shoes.
Oh, and it's fucking anti-trans too. Jesus Christ. This is awful.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
This is so bad. 10,000 sandwiches. Thank you for the 5 gifted subs. Yeah, I'm not political. I don't want to talk about political beliefs, but yeah, put God back in schools and stop letting kids be trans. But otherwise, I'm like not political at all, man. Thank you very much, 10,000 sandwiches. That was very kind of you. I just use common sense. It hurt trans people. That's right. It's worse than the original one, and it's actually funny because it's making. Whereas Oliver Anthony tried to do this, like, oh, it's not right wing, it's whatever, it's not. But this is like, no, it is. It definitely is. Oh fuck! I had my music playing that whole time. What is the term for right wing, but slightly, maybe just a little corporate critical? Well, I mean, it's like right wing populism. Maybe you might describe it as. But similar to Oliver Anthony, right? When you're talking about, the government's the problem. That's what it all comes down to for a lot of these guys, which ultimately just empowers the very corporations that they pretend to complain about. American centrism at its worst. It's not like that's the thing. It's like, and it shows how most people try to describe themselves that way. It's just like it's just another way of saying right wing or obscuring that. This is so bad.
Drive or drink is crazy. Common sense isn't common unless it pays me. That's the thought process daily. Look at the content we're creating, lies diluting our brains. I'm done trying to argue online with these people who think that a vote's gonna bring about change. How many presidents does it take to have a life worth living? An actual comfortable wage.
Not if you're
no
trans,
more
though.
school shootings. Let's unite these states.
It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you.
Atrocious. And what's the Canadian flag? Where's this guy from? From Ottawa, Ontario. Fuck. Then he says RT if you're American. This is one of these guys that's always sticking their nose in American politics. RT if you're American. Sir, you live in Ottawa. Man, that is so horrible. Dimitri, you're forgiven, and thank you for the 300 friend coin that you sent as well as restitution for inflicting this on us. Man, that's really bad. You get Midwestern Marks needs to get this guy on the phone. Get this guy on the horn. Maybe he'll actually like make an appearance. Maybe he's like still small time enough that you can get him to come on there. Awful. Absolutely terrible. I'm not left or right wing. I just think we should put God back in schools, and we need to be mean to trans people, especially kids. Those are my mainstream, centrist, neither left nor right, non-political views. You're talking about presidents in Ottawa. It's even pissing me off, you know? Ugh. Where do I even go from there? This is the first I've heard of this guy. He's like 250,000 followers. Where do we even go from there? I don't know. Honest question, what do right-wingers think get them higher wages, if not unions or minimum wage increases? I mean, this goes back to when you're talking about right-wing populism. I mean, this is like probably a good excuse to look at this. You know, I talked about Pierre Poilievre's fake economic populism the other day on the show, and I did a tweet about it, though, and in the replies, you see a lot of the answer to your exact question. Pierre Poilievre talks about how great working class people are. They're not ordinary people, they're extraordinary. All the working people of this land. But yeah, do you want to raise their wages? No. Do you want to support unions? No. Do you want to support people to collectively organize and go on strike? No, you don't. Do you want people to have more social programs? No. What do they actually want for these people? It's like, oh, we want to cut taxes for their bosses and slash all their social benefits and public education and public health care and social services. That's it. That's it. Which is the same tired conservative economic program that they've been trotting out for decades now. The exact same thing, the exact same policies, which have literally led to all the inequality that we're living with now that these fucking people complain about. are a direct result of these kinds of economic policies. And they're like, have we tried this? Have we tried just getting the government out of the way? Have we tried just cutting the red tape? I said it's absolutely pathetic that this is what passes for economic populism in this country, just completely meaningless pablum. But how great working class people are with no actual program or ideas about how they're actually going to make anyone's life any better, and it's working. And you see these people, because the budget will balance itself was so great, or have you been drinking too many water box things? What is this? I don't even understand what half these people are talking about. Literally. Like this person says, like, is this a bot? I don't even know if this is a person. This is one of the strangest interactions I've ever had on Twitter. This person says, like, and please, someone try and decipher this. There's all these extra employment posts made my days another layer of awkward. Early Avenue, every angle, you all are spouting some bunch of informed knowledge that isn't common. Just knowing is awkward and highly unsettling. I know you know. This is from blue check account Sunny Daisy on Twitter with 690 followers. I don't know what it means, Netlocked. I don't know. ChatGPT, that's good. For solidarity seek, how can I as an American mispronounce Polyev in a way that would most annoy him if overheard? God, I don't know. Maybe Poiliev? Poilievra, I think, would probably be the Americanized version. Pierre Poilievra. Poliver. So I don't even understand this. I said, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. And she said, okay, this is chicken. And sent me an image of her dinner, I guess. Who is this person? What was going on here? I really don't know. Like, I'm like, is this person supporting me? Are they not? Are they against me? I genuinely don't know. Like, if gun to my head, I could not give you an answer. It honestly looks not bad. The peas and the potatoes. Maybe there's not a lot of seasoning on the chicken. Maybe I could give it a little douse, something. Yeah. So I don't know. That was just a bizarre reaction. And they say it's working because they've put their ideas out there and Canadians like what they're hearing. And what are those ideas? Well, we're going to see. This person says, scrolling here looking for actual arguments. Nothing. Just people who don't like him. But I made an actual argument, though. I made an actual argument. I said he's just saying working class people are great while not actually talking about how he's going to help people. That's the argument. And they can't understand that. Why, though? This person says it's a message of this is the conservative populism. This is what it is. It's a message of hard work, productivity, and balanced budgets. So what that means, balanced budgets, like what that means is slashing social programs. That's what that means, right? Slashing public education, slashing public health care, slashing the welfare state. That's what balanced budgets means. So that's the conservative populist economic program. It's work even harder, be productive for your boss, who we're going to cut the taxes of. We'll maybe give you a little crumb of tax relief as well, of like a few $100 a year, while your boss gets thousands or tens of thousands. And we're going to slash social programs that people rely on. That's it. That's their big populist economic message. I could balance budgets by raising revenue. Yeah.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Nace, thank you very much. 1 entire year of Prime for Nace Zero. Thank you, Nace. Like, how your defective must your brain be to believe this is going to like help anybody? How's the she-covery coming along? And this is where we fall into the stupid binary in our two-party system. Trudeau bad. That's what they default to. When you're like, what is this guy Pierre Poilievre?
Okay, Rob. Seriously, wow.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Calm like a Tom. Thank you so much for 10 gifted subs. That's fucking amazing. Thank you, Calm like a Tom. My goodness gracious. I love that alert so much too. I know it's rare. Like, I understand it's extremely generous to give 10 subs, but I just it pops me every time. It's really good. Whose voice is that? It's Vijay Prashad. I wonder if he knows that I've turned him into an alert on the stream. So, but this is again, this just goes back to our like two-party system, right? So you say this guy Poilievre sucks. He has no economic message. He's not actually offering to help anybody. Conservative policies are only going to make people's lives worse, and all they can say is Trudeau bad. How's the she-covery coming along? I know things are bad right now. That's the whole thing, is that, as we've been talking about, I should have changed the title before I even started talking about this. Ah. We may need to seriously rob mediocre drop edit. That would be good. Yeah. But he's probably forgotten you exist. He hasn't forgotten that I exist. We've had multiple long conversations. Jeez. Kind of harsh. But that's the whole thing. Yeah, Trudeau bad. Trudeau bad. If you point out all these holes in Poilievre's like completely empty economic messaging.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
I can smell that P badge.
Thank you, Jay, for 17 months tier 1. I appreciate that. And you get a way around the text to speech. I'm so excited for someone to hit 36 months now. I think Netlocked might be the closest. Netlock's at 34. Sinchow's at 33. I'm very hyped for people to get that 36-month
You can
badge.
count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Halfway there.
Critical Mass, thank you for 18 months tier 1. But the whole point of this post, though, is to talk about the ways that, like, Pierre Poilievre and these right-wing populists correctly identify real economic problems when it comes to inflation, when it comes to housing costs spiraling totally out of control. They talk about these very real economic issues, right? As I've been pointing out, I'm not denying, nor would I ever deny, that in our current economy, no, it's not working for most people, especially most working class people. My point is, though, that they're not actually offering any policies that are going to meaningfully impact that. This guy's putting words in my mouth. I don't know if it is working. First of all, it is working. You can look at the poll numbers. But what you should be upset about is the lack of a real solution for all the parties altogether. Yeah, no shit, sir. Yeah, that's kind of the whole thing. That's kind of the whole issue, is that not all of the parties have almost identical economic visions that are all just variations of neoliberalism. One that slides the social democracy slider a little bit more, and one that slides it back in the other direction. I agree. I agree that that is the problem. Buddy, Quebec would have went bankrupt 20 years ago without federal welfare payments. Okay. Is it possible that, and this person's Canadian millennial says, is it possible that quality of life may increase by the government getting out of people's way? To have fewer and they know what the program is, to have fewer programs requiring fewer taxes and fewer centrally planned ideas and solutions that force people into situations. No, because guess what? We have tried that. We have tried this form of economics for the last 50 fucking years about. We've been slashing programs, requiring and cutting people's taxes. And this it is. Live common sense convention speech to caucus. And we can look at this after. Here's our common sense plan. Build homes workers can afford. Who's going to build homes? Not the state, obviously. That's not going to be like social housing. When he says, let's build homes workers can afford, you're talking about developers, real estate developers, building these homes. How are you going to make them build homes that workers can afford? What does it mean to be a home that a worker can afford? What's the price? What's the actual price that you're talking about? Axe the tax. And of course, reverse inflationary spending to bring down interest rates, which there's no actually proven link between these two things. This idea, and again, this is what we talk about often, right? Inflationary spending. What's that? You hear this in America a lot as well. We talked about this with Adam Johnson on the podcast last night. What's inflationary spending? That's social spending. That's when the state spends money on whether if it's America, like SNAP benefits, the welfare state, social services, healthcare, unemployment benefits, disability benefits. That's all inflationary, you see. Every single dollar, when you spend it on social spending, actually going into the pocket of someone that needs it. Well, it just creates inflation, just magically. You can spend money, the state can spend money on other things. Like the state can slash people's taxes and reduce its income, reduce its revenue significantly. That doesn't lead to inflation, though. The state can spend on the military. The state can spend on subsidies to the oil and gas industry or the telecoms or any other big industry that runs this country. Doesn't cause inflation, though. None of that is inflationary spending. The only spending that's inflationary spending is social spending. When it actually goes to help human beings, the human beings that he claims to care about. So that's what I mean when they don't have answers, or when they're talking about how great working class people are. This is the same as I talked about this the other day when we looked at this video. You don't need to even look at their speeches to know what the hidden agenda is. It's cut taxes and cut social spending. That's it, and they're spelling it out right there. And people are so fucking cucked in this country, and have been had their brains completely melted by our just completely toxic and pathetic political and media culture in this country, that they still believe this. They still believe this is actually going to meaningfully help people's lives. by their own logic, wouldn't cutting taxes have the same effect on increasing inflation? No, because again, first of all, there's no logic to it. You're right. But it's only social spending. That's what caused bringing down interest rates, like cutting social programs, is going to have nothing to do with the interest rates. And again, I'm not Mr. fucking economy, Mr. Economics 101. But it's not Justin Trudeau sitting there like tweaking the interest rates button in the parliament or whatever. He's not saying today we will rise interest rates even more. Like he does not control that. And inflationary spending, as he talks about, like when he does these stupid fucking analogies. Remember when we watched the video where he's in the restaurant? Well, the economy is like this breakfast. You know, you can afford some toast and bacon, but once you start spending too much, then you can't. Or it's a family budget. And no, it is not. No, it is not like that. It is not like that whatsoever. Speaking of austerity measures as an excuse to cut spending, have you seen this? Yeah, and I think talk about common sense. I mean, this is all common sense as well. The political cost of austerity, fiscal consolidations lead to a significant increase in extreme parties' vote share, low voter turnout, and a rise in political fragmentation. Yeah, because you see the way that all these economic policies are just bipartisan. You know, the idea that the liberals have some vastly different approach to spending or the economy as conservatives do. They're literally just squabbling over how much social security, how much social spending to cut, how much austerity measures to inflict, a lot or a little, how much privatization. They'll agree with all these things. And lo and behold, that leads to a lot of people that are economically struggling and suffering, which opens the doors, particularly in places in the West here, where we've spent the last several decades totally crushing the stem of the left, purging all the unions of socialists and purging socialists from all our institutions and the government and bombarding people with anti-communist propaganda. It opens the door mostly to right-wing parties to take all this very real alienation that people are experiencing and sell them this completely fake bill of goods about how they're going to get them out of this problem, which really just reinforces all the exact same policies as what caused the alienation in the first place. Nothing that Pierre Poilievre is outlining here in his common sense economic platform, nothing in here is going to meaningfully actually help working class people. All of this will just, as it has done for the last 45 years or however long it's been, increase inequality, lead to an upward transfer of wealth. Like when you cut taxes and social spending, that's an upward transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. That's all he's proposing as a way to help the precious working class, extraordinary working class people that he cares about so much. Let's continue funneling money upwards from the poor to the rich. We'll cut social spending that helps the poor, and we'll cut rich people's taxes that helps them. This is borderline fraudulent territory too. Look, Pierre. You're not young and cool, Pierre, no matter how much you try to look like it. Let's look at some of this fucking conservative conference. You get some face injections. I think there's a little face tuning going on that one. I remember Harper selling out my future out from under me and people applauding it. I mean, this is what conservative economics is, right? It's not just Stephen Harper, but it's Stephen Harper, it's Mike Harris, it's Brian Mulrooney. This is the economic program they've been offering now for just decades and decades. And they might have this kind of like little small rebrand. They might try and capture this kind of populist sentiment, or the ways that the alienation that people are experiencing from living under decades of these exact policies of privatization and austerity, all the exact same things that he's continuing to peddle. They might rebrand it. They might try and go in this populist direction. They might wrap it around this veneer of like wokeism or whatever. Unions are woke. Wanting to raise the minimum wage is woke, whatever it is. But overall, it's the same program. It's just neoliberalism. That's exactly right. And all of our parties, the Conservative Party, the Liberals, and the NDP, agree on this neoliberalism. They just agree on like a few minor squabbles about how many crumbs you want to give to working class people versus how much do you want to just be completely rigged towards the wealthiest and most powerful people. But yeah, all of our parties are in complete agreement about this. And then what do you know? You have the governor of the Bank of Canada agreeing. What do you know? The governor of the Bank of Canada agrees. There it is. My thesis of the last 3 years. Now, the governor of the Bank of Canada agrees government spending growth causes inflation. So there you have it. We even have the governor of the Bank of Canada now admitting this. Personally, I think I just don't listen to every single thing these like ghouls say. I just don't take it for granted. But that's just me. Let's look at some of the clips from this stupid conservative convention. If the chief neoliberal of Canada says it must be true, what do you know? The governor of the Bank of Canada says government spending bad. Why are groceries so much cheaper in the States than in Canada? First of all, I don't even know how true that is. 2 words, Justin Trudeau, axe the tax, bring home affordable food. That's why it's not the grocer monopolies that control this industry in our country that are making record profits. Absolutely record profits over the last 3 years because they've raised prices. Well, you just need to cut their taxes, which is going to mean cheaper food. These people are making more money than ever before. You know what we need to do is make sure they make more money, and then they'll charge less for food. That's the solution. That's the conservative, populist economic solution. They're not making enough money. That's why. They're not making enough money because of all this government red tape. So we got to cut their taxes, and then they're going to say, oh, we will now lower food prices. Which has happened precisely 0 times ever in our civilization. Like I keep saying, these are not new ideas. These are the same tired economic policies that we've been promoting now since at least 1980. If you go back to like the dawn of that neoliberal era with Reaganism and Thatcherism, which both major parties have been enthusiastic supporters of. But that's populism. You know what I mean? That's populism when these grocery monopolies are just gouging people. This guy's claiming to care about people that are paying too much for groceries. And rather than going at the wealthy and powerful people that are setting the prices that people have to pay so they can make more and more money, and saying we should fucking go after these people that are doing this. What's the problem? Justin Trudeau. We're taxing these people too much. Like that. And how do people buy that? If you're someone that's going, like, seriously, if you're one of the people that's falling under the spell of this conservative populist message, you're going to the grocery store, everything's way more expensive, you know? Meat and fucking milk and eggs, medicine, whatever it is you're buying at the grocery store, it's just too expensive. You're coming home at the end of the day, you're looking at the grocery bill. God, it's like I'm spending more and more and getting less and less. You know what we need to do? Cut the taxes of the people that are setting the prices of these products. Like, how? Like, I understand when you're working for this class of people and protecting their class interests, that's what you do. But if you're one of the people that's getting fucked over when you're buying groceries, how does that click for you? I genuinely don't understand. And that's supposed to be populism. Get the red tape out of the way. Cut the taxes of the people that are charging us for these products, and then they'll charge less. Like, who believes this? Lots of people, actually. Lots of people believe it. It's true. It's amazing, though, isn't it? Like, where you say the propaganda is too strong. Like, it's really fucking crazy to me. Just like you're struggling, you're working dog bullshit hours for bullshit pay, right? You're just being worked to the bone. I've had enough. I've had enough of this division in Ottawa. I've had enough of this division in Washington. I'm being worked to the absolute bone. I got less pay. I got less benefits. You know what we need to do? Cut my boss's taxes. That's the problem. You know who's the problem here? I'm working all fucking day and I'm making less and less, have less of a future, can't afford a home, can barely afford groceries. You know who's the problem? Joe Biden. You know who's the problem? Justin Trudeau. If we just get them out of the way and cut my boss's taxes, my life's going to get way better. Do these people not realize that we have tried this? Do people not understand that we have tried this economic policy? This is what we've been doing now for the last 40 years. Like, people in America don't seem to fucking wrap their minds around the idea that, like, when America had this middle class and people could afford a home and people were getting by and their material conditions were rising, the top marginal tax rate was like 90%. And now you have two different parties that are arguing, should it be 35 or should it be 28? What is this, formerly James? Did we make some kind of a funny mashup here? This guy's putting words in my mouth. I don't know if it is working. First of all, it is working. You can look at the poll numbers. But what you should be upset about is the lack of a real solution for all the parties altogether. Yeah, no shit, sir. There you go. Little collab. That is just, it's honestly amazing to me. Groceries are too expensive. Let's cut the fucking taxes of the people that own the grocery companies. And then you have like a liberal party are being like, I think they're taxed enough. Let's maybe like have some social spending as well. And then you have the NDP being like, let's raise their taxes. Well, where are the people saying like, let's nationalize our grocery industry? Why are we letting these what is it, 3 or 4 families that control this whole industry in Canada? Why do they have that power over our society, over this totally essential industry that people need to live? Where's the party making these arguments? Not like, what should their taxes be? 35%? Should it be 30%? Should it be 25%? Who's out there saying like, let's just take away these grocery chains and have state-run grocery chains? And which we can have a centrally planned situation where we set the prices for these products. Or the telecom industry. Or the oil and gas industry. What has privatization really done to like meaningfully get these services to people? Why do we let these billionaire families control these incredibly essential aspects of our society? It does not make sense. You see, it's all crony capitalism, of course. Yeah. It's crony capitalism, you see. This to me is just amazing, honestly. Axe the tax. Bring home affordable food. Why are groceries so much cheaper in the States than in Canada? Justin Trudeau. Axe the tax. Cut the taxes of the grocery store monopolies. It's just amazing to me. The Common Sense Convention. Okay, let's look at this fucking shit. He's gonna win. Like, unless some kind of major change happens, and like our whole party system is designed to ensure no major change happens. But if nothing really meaningfully changes, he's gonna win. Like, at this point, it's barely even a contest.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup.
I feel like Pierre might have got a little Botox or something as well. You think?
Merci beaucoup tout le monde et bienvenue à Québec.
They're speaking French. That's woke shit. That's woke to do.
Merci beaucoup.
Were his eyes always that small? Yes. I keep telling him he's got to get good glasses.
Mais surtout, merci à la grande nation québécoise pour nous avoir accueillis ici. Nous sommes très fiers d'être au berceau du Canada.
Est-ce que c'est tout en français?
Là où nos
Ça?
pères de la Confédération ont rédigé les 72 articles qui allaient
Est-ce que c'est
devenir
complètement en
plus
français, cette
tard
speech-là?
notre première constitution ici au Canada. Ville de 400 ans, ville historique, l'une des villes les plus belles et connues au monde. Oui, c'est vrai.
It is a beautiful city.
Et c'est vraiment approprié que la ville fondatrice de notre pays est le lieu du congrès du parti fondateur du Canada, n'est-ce pas?
Est-ce que cette speech-là, c'est complètement en français? Pourquoi? What's amazing to me is that far-right Diagolon types hate PP and say that he's a secret communist indistinguishable from Castro's son, Justin. Well, I think one thing is true. The whole idea that Pierre Poilievre is going to stand up to like the World Economic Forum is just nonsense. First of all, he's not going to. So yeah, he's going to contribute to all the exact same economic policies with maybe a few little tweaks about tax rates and things like that, and social spending. The idea that he's going to meaningfully go after these major economic institutions is just preposterous. And secondly, like the way that he's been positioning himself to be this like political outsider, I think that's hilarious too. He's some outsider maverick, not a lifelong. He's been in the conservative political movement since he was like 18 years old. And frankly, I'm sorry. If you're 18 years old and you join like a campus conservative group and you're part of the conservative party ecosystem when you're not even 20 years old, jail. Jail. I'm sorry. There's something wrong with you. We got to correct that. We got to fix that. Straight to jail. Really, it goes to the same with the liberals as well. If you're one of these like young Democrats or one liberals as well, like one of these like Zoomer Democrats as well, that's also instantly suspect. Re-education. Anyway, I can't imagine this whole thing is in French.
Et aussi, c'est la ville.
I would really, honestly, I would really like to be invited
Count on
onto
me.
our.
You're gonna have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Go directly to jail. Do not collect $200.
Effusive Stoic, thank you. 22 months tier 1. Thank you. Very much appreciate that. I would really like to go on TV in this country and be able to make some of these arguments. I really would. And I think I should be allowed to. I've got the experience. I have the know-how. I have the audience. Even if you want to bring me on as a token lefty to talk about this or talk about foreign policy, Ukraine or whatever, I got the fit. Look, I got the face. Look at that. I should be getting invited onto TV to talk about this shit. Frankly, and I can do it without cursing either.
Justin Trudeau veut effacer.
I'm not going to run as a
l'enlever de
conservative.
notre
No.
passeport. C'est la ville que M. Blanchette a oubliée. Maintenant, ici, aujourd'hui, à Québec, les gens s'inquiètent de la coût de la vie, le coût de l'essence, d'épicerie et de logement.
Quebec's going to vote conservative next election because you're doing this, Pierre. They're not going to. That's probably one of the only things that's possibly getting in his way. You can see that's why they had the convention in Quebec, because it's like they're going to have a way harder time, as anyone always will have a harder time winning an election without Quebec. So he's trying to make these inroads here.
De Catalogne. Vas-y parler à 1000 personnes au centre-ville de Québec pour leur demander leurs priorités. Combien vont dire que leur priorité principale, c'est la souveraineté de Catalogne?
You can count on me.
Zero.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Oh hey, 7 months of dialectical materialism and friendship.
Alt Tab Dad, thank you very much. 7 whole months from Alt Tab Dad. Very much appreciated. Is this whole thing in French? I mean, I can understand it because he's like... I find it a way easier time to understand like Anglophones that are just speaking French badly, because that's what I am. But I can't just listen to a whole speech in French.
Les conservateurs sont ici à Québec, il est là-bas. Et comment est-ce qu'il est allé, est allé en Espagne? Est-ce que c'était en canot? 3 sous parce qu'ils mettent la taxe de vente sur la taxe de l'essence. Des communes qui ont suggéré...
Is this all French?
Les gens dans... Stéphane, seulement le parti the famous Van Dues and countless other symbols of Canadian... Thank you very much. So, and now in English. Welcome to Quebec City, everybody. Unbelievable. You see the Shadow of Frontenac still there? It was deleted from the passport, along with the...
Oh, the passport. Everyone was mad about that.
And
the woke passports.
Symbols of Canadiana, of which we are all so proud. Justin Trudeau, of course, would like us to erase our past and cancel our future. And
it's canceled.
It with the dystopia that now exists in this country after 8 years of his government, where the cost of living is rising faster than at any time in modern memory. Work doesn't pay. Interest rates are rising faster than ever in monetary history. Housing costs have doubled. Crime, chaos, drugs and disorder are common in our streets. And what does he want to do about it? He wants to quadruple the carbon tax.
That's the carbon tax is the problem.
Cents a liter. He does this while he jets around the world, while his environment minister goes to Beijing. In China, the country that emits by far the highest greenhouse gases of any country on Earth.
They're making all our shit, Pierre, and they're investing way more than anyone, including us and America and everyone else, completely destroying everyone else and actually investing in green energy. Which I know you know that, I say it often, but worth debunking if any Pierre heads happen to be watching right now. We talk about China going to as in their status as an emitter, and also the idea that like, oh yeah, we're going to be able to solve this climate change problem without working with China. Even talking to China is bad, apparently, according to Pierre. Like his plan for climate change is to have no carbon tax, which we've talked about how useless a carbon tax is now. It would have been valuable maybe 40 years ago. But cut that carbon tax and spend a little bit on renewable energy, but less than what Trudeau is doing. That's his climate agenda. Also, the idea that he's not out there flying around in a jet. Well, he's allowed though, because he doesn't think that it's that big of a deal.
Won't be wagging his finger at the leaders in that country. He's too busy wagging his fingers at single mothers back in Canada who have to buy groceries for their kids, or working class carpenters who need a pickup truck to do their jobs.
And how are you going to do that with cutting their taxes? He's too busy. He's not going to wag his finger at China over their emissions. He's too busy wagging his finger at the two Michaels like Dikembe Mutombo when they asked if they can come back from their unjust imprisonment. And Trudeau says, no, 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 no. He wags his finger at our two beautiful boys.
And when they do their jobs, work doesn't pay. They earn an extra $1, and with clawbacks and taxes, they can lose 80 cents of that dollar. We punish hard work in this country after 8 years of Trudeau. You don't bring it home. In fact, increasingly, Canadians do not have a home at all. Housing costs have doubled. Rent has doubled. Mortgage payments have doubled. The cost.
Why do I feel like working class people who need a truck to do their job is a nod to petit bourgeois freedom convoyers? Yeah, well, exactly. Like working class carpenters he's talking about. And yeah, I think carpenters should make more money and should be able to afford tools or whatever. But that's that we talked a little bit about that yesterday. And hello, Husker, by the way. But yeah, who counts as part of this working class? And yeah, these small business owners, carpenters, landscaping business owners, you know, those types. Not working class are, you know, people that work in grocery stores. Did they get better wages? No. They get a minor tax cut and a $200 tax credit at the end of the year. Or people that work in the service industry, or, you know, countless other incredibly important jobs in the gig economy. Countless other incredibly important jobs. They don't count as being these as part of the working class communities that he's trying to speak to.
The cost of a down payment needed to buy a home has doubled. It has been double trouble after 8 years of Justin Trudeau. You know, the good news is life was not like this in Canada before Justin Trudeau, and it won't be like this after he's gone.
Yeah, nurses and teachers, yeah, they're woke, and women, that's right, yeah. They don't count as being working class.
Conservatives will get back to the common sense of the common people. We will make the country work for the people who've done the work. We'll do this by bringing home lower prices. That means axing the carbon tax to lower the cost of gas, heat, and groceries. Who's ready to axe the tax? You want to axe the tax? Let's axe the tax.
That's the carbon tax is the reason for grocery price inflation.
Balance the budget to eliminate the inflationary deficits and allow interest rates to come back down.
This is it. Balance the budget. Slash social spending, because that's inflationary. Slash inflationary social spending. Balance the budget, which, I don't know, if you're balancing the budget, cutting taxes actually decreases the likelihood of that happening. Not that conservatives actually care about the budget, but when you slash corporate taxes, which is what Pierre is going to do, that actually leads to the government having less money, which leads to an increase in the deficit. Not that I'm Mr. Economics, apparently. Apparently I don't, as a Marxist, I don't understand these advanced concepts. Yeah, let's just bow to any capital strike, James. That's what I'm saying. Not only bow when you have grocery monopolies, the 3 or 4 families in this country that control this industry, when they collude to raise prices and earn record profits, billions and billions of dollars. The best way to get them to not do that is to cut their taxes, and so they make even more money.
Yesterday, Chrystia Freeland discovered that interest rates were a problem, right? First she said that interest rates were too low and they'd never go up. She said that we would have deflation. And Justin Trudeau said debt was consequence-free because it was cheap to borrow. And then their deficits drove up interest rates. By the way, it's not me who says this. It's the former Liberal Finance Minister, John Manley, the last Liberal, I think, to deliver a balanced budget. He said that the Prime Minister's deficits are pressing on the inflationary gas pedal, which forces the Bank of Canada to press
it just
on
forces them
deflationary brakes by raising interest rates. So really what's happening is Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland are raising interest rates by driving up these deficits. A Conservative government will cap spending, bring in a dollar-for-dollar law that requires politicians find $1 of savings for each new dollar of spending, the same rule that single moms and small businesses follow every single day.
Oh, I fucking hate this. This is conservative economics from decades and decades ago, which has never increased inequality ever. It has only ever contributed to inequality increasing. And then this whole, just like the single moms and the family budget. The government budget is not like a family budget. That is not true. Most families don't have the ability to just print fucking money in their basement. That is the complete nonsense. Families and small businesses famously do not take out loans such as mortgages. God damn. And again, this is our right-wing populism. This is our right-wing populism. And as we were talking about, the reason that people are struggling right now, working class people, is not because of Justin Trudeau, even though he's contributed to it. It's because of these exact policies. Because this is the way that we've run our economy in Western governments now for the last 40 years. And we're living in the result of that. And all the alienation and all the increases in the unaffordability, housing prices, unemployment, tent encampments, all these consequences are all a consequence of neoliberalism, which he's promoting that we need to quadruple down on. And that's our economic populist message that people around this country are saying, like, yeah, get the government out of the way. Cut my boss's taxes. Cut my boss's taxes. Cut these telecom companies' taxes. The 5 families that control every major industry in this country, get their taxes cut. They need to make more. They need to make more money, revenue every year. I don't know why I'm doing that voice. They need to make more money every year that they can stash in offshore tax havens. That's going to really lead to a real increase in people's quality of life. We're the precious working people, the extraordinary working people. Give Galen Weston a tax cut. This is what he's running on. And there's people around the country that are just like, yeah, I love it. I love it. Please cut my boss's taxes. There's nothing that would make me happier as if you just slashed my boss's taxes. God damn, dude.
We will follow that rule to get rid of these inflationary deficits and bring down the cost of living so that purchasing power remains and we have sound money with which people can buy a solid quality of life. Sound money. Sound money. And we will bring homes that Canadians can afford. You know, it's lately Liberals have been flailing about trying to explain why
it is peasant mentality.
Doubled mortgage payments and doubled down payments, and so they've tried to complicate the problem. It's actually a very simple problem. We have too few homes for our population.
I love my boss. This is the conservative populist economic platform. I love my boss. I love my landlord. I love my grocery baron. I love my telecom overlord. And most of all, I worship at the altar of the oil and gas companies. It is big time peasant mentality. It's embarrassing and it's pathetic. And like I said, there's a difference between a liberal party or a social democratic party saying like, we should tax these people slightly more. Maybe we should tax them even more than slightly more. And no one's saying like, it should not be a reality in this country that like 5 families control every major industry that have this huge amount of consequence in the lives of every single person that lives here. I love my multinational oil and gas corporations. That's right, Red Scary. I was just got a new sponsor, so I'm really trying to hit that home. And I guess that's the thing that just makes my brain hurt to think about. This kind of, when it comes to right-wing populism, how totally incoherent and nonsensical it is. Saying how much you care about the common person, and then the way that the common person's life is going to be elevated is by slashing social spending and cutting the taxes of their bosses and all our economic overlords. And that's what passes for populism. And people are just like, yeah, true dope. More like tur dope. It's just painful. Like, it is really painful. Shit.
Fewer homes last year than we built in 1972, even though our population has doubled in that time period. And why do we have the...
And again, who's we? You talk about we built fewer homes. Who's we, though? Who's we? Because he's not talking about the state. Because if we want to talk about housing and building more homes and building affordable homes, we should be building, as I fucking keep saying, we should be building social housing. That is what we have stopped doing. The liberals stopped doing it. The conservatives stopped doing it. And the NDP doesn't really talk about. What's the NDP talking about right now? Like some slightly better affordable student housing, things like that? How about, wouldn't that excite people? How about a big national transformative infrastructure project? Well, we build millions of new social housing units and we build a massive high-speed rail network. What about that? And we put people to work on a state-sponsored, massively transformative economic platform that transforms millions of people's lives. We build huge amounts of state housing. We build huge amounts of rail and transport infrastructure. We unite the country. We have great jobs, union jobs for people that are engaged in this massively nationally transformative project. It brings us all together working for a common goal, building new green infrastructure. But no, we don't build houses we're not building enough houses. So that we are not we're talking about the government, the state. They don't want the state building anything. You're talking about you're talking about private developers who are the only people that have the ability to do this kind of construction. What's the problem? Well, we just got to cut their taxes. That's why these developers aren't building affordable housing enough, because we just haven't cut their taxes enough. We need to cut the taxes of the real estate developers. We need to cut the taxes of the landlords. We need to cut the taxes of the grocery store monopolists and the telecom monopolies and the oil and gas monopolies. You know what I mean? And this is why I get pissed off at the NDP. They might come up with good ideas, like even the stuff that Jugmeat said recently about student housing. It's like, okay, fine, great, good. Affordable student housing. Where are the big ideas, though? How about a big idea that completely unites the whole country and transforms the whole country and gives millions of people really great union jobs and increases the housing supply and increases actually affordable housing because it's social housing? How about we build a big rail network so people don't need to get killed at the gas pump so they can fucking take the train and they don't have to be in their cars all the time? And we massively invest in transit so people don't have to be in their cars all the time. I know these things are difficult, but it would be nice to have someone out there actually making these arguments in our political system or at least our media. But we have neither. We have neither. Rachel Notley had a big idea. It was to run a pro-oil campaign and get bodied by a complete moron. Rachel Notley, the Airbnb owner. I love being in my truck, though. High-speed rail to Windsor to Halifax. What's 50% of the entire population of our country live in that region? That very small, geographically small area? You know, this is why this shit gets frustrating for me. And this is why I just find it beyond frustrating that this kind of like completely bullshit, hollow, conservative economic populism is finding an audience and catching on in this country. I just find that so embarrassing.
Homes in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. Very simple. We're the second slowest country in the world to deliver a building permit. Government gatekeepers stand in the way and add $1.3 million to the cost of every newly built home in Vancouver, $350,000 to every newly built home in Toronto. Montreal blocked 24,000 new housing units since 2017. Winnipeg had to be condemned
not social housing
courts for blocking 2,000 housing units right next to a transit station that was specifically built for those housing units. And what does Trudeau do? He pays these gatekeepers to build their bureaucracies, sending them billions more. He has an $89 billion housing program, and he's used that to double the cost of housing. Here's our common sense plan. Less bureaucracy, more homes. We will link the number of dollars that cities get for infrastructure to the number of homes they allow to be completed. They will be required to boost building permits by 15% per year or lose federal infrastructure funds.
How do you make it affordable?
Target. We'll get a building bonus to incentivize fast approvals and quick construction. We'll require every federal transit station.
He's talking about suburban sprawl and McMansions.
So that young people and seniors can live right next to the bus and train. We'll sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land to turn into housing. We'll back the trades. We need boots, not just...
Yeah, that's exact. This is how hollow, young spinach, this is how hollow and completely nonsensical this conservative economic populism is. The supposed solution to housing. Has anyone thought about this? We'll deregulate, cut taxes, and just let developers build whatever they want. Why has no one thought about this? Why has no one ever tried this? That's instantly going to lead to like people are going to be able to afford these new homes that they're going to build. Why? Well, because they're going to get a tax cut. Their bosses are going to get tax cuts. Are their wages going to go up? No. Yes, it's what we've been doing for 50 years. This is right-wing populism. Isn't this pretty much the one more lay and trust me argument? Absolutely, yeah. We'll just give a little bit more incentive to these developers. We've been too hard on them. These are the people we've just been too hard on in our society. The grocery chain monopolies, the Weston families, the real estate developers, the oil and gas companies. We're just too mean to them. We're too mean to them. And if we just started being a little bit nicer, things are going to get better for everybody. That's what's going on in this country. We're just so mean to these major industries that control and dominate our entire country. What happened in Winnipeg is a developer didn't like city planners actually imposing requirements on him and somehow won a lawsuit against the city alleging the planners deliberately stalled his development. The developers have all the power and they still whine like little bitches. And again, it's not just the developers, it's the leaders of all these powerful industries, the people that run this country. It's in the same way that when police unions, that's how they act when they get mildly criticized. They get mildly criticized, they get mildly increased in their taxes, and they throw little tantrums until they get their way. And we have conservative economic populists out there to back them up and to message this to the people. Yeah, I mean, it is fake populism. That's what I mean. It's fake populism when you talk about people not being able to afford groceries, not being able to afford rent, not being able to get a job, not being able to afford a home, and saying the solution is to cut the taxes of the bosses, cut the taxes of the oligarchs, cut the taxes of the landlords, and then everyone's life is going to get better. This is what we've been doing. This is what we have been doing for 40 fucking years. And we're living in the result of that.
Can build the houses of the future. That's our common sense plan. Thank you. That is our common sense plan here at this common sense convention. Le Congrès Gros Bon Sens. That common sense plan will make Canada again the freest country in the world. Safe in our streets, respected in the world. Canadians raise their head high and work towards fulfilling their dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the common sense of the common people, united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you.
McKinsey ass fucking slogan there. This is pathetic that there's an audience for this. You know, it's just stupid. Woke moralists have demonized our generous landlords, and now we have no land. That's right. It's peasant mentality, and then this kind of fake populism says like, oh, if you're feeling like downtrodden, you're feeling like you're being used and exploited and you're alienated, which is all very true. And then just like transferring even more wealth to the very people that are engaging in this exploitation. My goodness. I'm gonna get a Coke. Can't take this shit. This calls for an ice cold cherry Coke Zero. Oh, that makes me feel better already. Some cherry Coke Zero on my keyboard. And yeah, I think you're right, Energy CC. People have no trust in the government because for most of their lives, the government was the neoliberal regardless of who it was. And they don't feel like their lives have improved at all. Yeah, and that's why people respond to Trump. Like Donald Trump, the champion of the downtrodden. Like that's how fucking absurd right-wing populism is. Donald Trump, champion of the working guy, the little man, Donald Trump. Like, it's so preposterous, but it worked. And it's working here. I mean, it's less of an extreme comparison. But I think Poilievre is still, he's positioning himself as some kind of brave, truth-telling outsider, a lifelong conservative operative. They've sufficiently starved the beast. Well, that's the whole like self-fulfilling prophecy of neoliberalism, right? Is that like social services are cut, spending is cut, things are deregulated. Inevitably, these things stop working. Government services stop working as intended. Bureaucracy is increased, benefits are reduced. These things, whether it's public education, whether it's public health care, like any big public initiative, public program starts failing. And then right-wing populists say, like, look at these failing government institutions. You know what we need to do? Privatize them even more. That's the scam, right? That's the grift. That's the neoliberal grift. You have neoliberals like Joe Biden or Justin Trudeau saying, like, no, we should cut, but not a lot, just a little bit. Or, continue these programs, but nowhere near at the level of spending that they actually need to be successful. And then lo and behold, they don't work. And conservatives come along and say, like, here's the government's the problem. Get the government out of this. Cut the red tape. Privatize this stuff even more. Privatize our healthcare industry even more. Privatize our education system even more. Get the government out of the way. Get the red tape out of the way. It's just depressing. It's depressing that this works. You know? It's really sending me just the whole idea of like, mad about your grocery bill. What we need to do is take the power back by cutting the Weston family's taxes. That to me is just incredible. It really is. That's our common sense policy. Cut the taxes of the people that are doing the gouging and the exploitation in the first place. Just one sec. I just got to send a text here. Don't mind me. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, I've given you things to talk about. Just give me one moment here. I'd sooner roll a guillotine to their door and see if they figured it out. But remember a few years ago when those people brought a guillotine to, like, I think it was a May Day protest, and everyone was, our whole media class was like, oh no, how off-putting, how alienating, and now these like kind of social democrat types were finger wagging as well.
I'm here to end the week's strong hello and good morning from the Pacific time zone where it is still morning. I'm the new Rob.
G Clappy. Thank you for the 500 friend coin. I really appreciate that. Not the new Rob, though. That is not accurate. That's misinformation. That is not true. Still only one. Still only one. One second, sorry. One moment. Okay, sorry. Okay. It's funny when we have like a possible new Rob situation coming up, and then I just start immediately abdicate the whole hosting responsibility to start tapping away on my phone. Dr. Awesome says he's the new G Cluppy. Maybe I should be the new G Cluppy. How about that? Not so funny now, is it? Not so funny now, is it? You snooze, you lose. Let's take a look at some more of these stupid clips. No, there's not a regime change. There's no regime change. And listen, like, this whole thing about interest rates. Okay, so he says Justin Trudeau has told Canadians to take on massive mortgages because debt was consequence-free. I mean, that is one thing. The truly amazing thing is that debt pretty much was consequence-free from the financial crisis to like a year or two ago, and we did nothing with that. In terms of federal spending, we built no infrastructure, we built nothing at all. Number one. But like, this whole idea, like I was talking about, his deficits, the Trudeau deficits drive the mortgage payments up. So this is the connection that Polyev is making here, right? Social spending leads to deficits, which leads to interest rates increases and inflation. That's the case that he's making. This rampant, out of control spending from Justin Trudeau, which is not rampant nor out of control. All this social spending, though, has led to inflation. It's led to an increase in interest rates. But like, aren't our lifting interest rates like directly related to what's going on in the main banks in America as well, and like the Fed in the United States raising their interest rate? That has nothing to. They've not even indicated that has nothing to do with social spending. I think they've suggested that that's going to bring down inflation, even though I don't know if there's any evidence to that. But this idea that like Justin Trudeau is personally saying like we will raise interest rates, or like Justin Trudeau, because of his whatever modest spending that he might have committed to, has led to this. Like there's no evidence of that whatsoever. And like there's a lot of evidence that the Bank of Canada interest rates are just tied directly to whatever's going on at the Fed in the US. Am I wrong about that? Again, I'm not Mr. Economics, as many of you know. This whole idea that it's Trudeau and inflationary spending that led to interest rate hikes. I just don't know that there's any evidence of that whatsoever, and that we're not just going directly along with what the Fed is doing. Yeah, you're not wrong. The Fed sets the monetary tone for the world. And that's one thing, as we were talking about Trudeau, like does Pierre, the brave truth teller, ever want to talk about Biden's in control of America right now, and all his fans and supporters, they all hate Biden, think he's a communist too. Why don't we talk about decoupling ourselves economically and culturally from the United States? He's not really talking about that either. Interest rates are a deflation mechanism because people won't take loans to buy things. It's like, let's stop people from buying shit. But unfortunately, this does run into a problem, though, when our entire economy is predicated on people continuing to buy shit all the time. And then these companies that make the shit look around and say, why is no one buying our shit? And then they cut their staff, and then we cut their taxes. And people lose their jobs. It's a neoliberal doom spiral. That's a really good way of describing it. In both of those things, right? It's like you talk about the ways that you raise interest rates, people can't buy stuff, revenues go down, job cuts happen, people need social welfare, which is no longer available, increasing homelessness, increasing all this alienation, and then we cut their taxes. And yeah, it's also a doom spiral in the way that we underfund and privatize all these industries, and then when they inevitably stop working, we use that for further privatization. It's just it's this self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't know. It's pretty fucking preposterous, this whole idea of right-wing economic populism that's taking hold of this country.
The carbon tax, the announcements have it going up. As I said, our estimate is that increases inflation each year. That increases inflation each year.
And actually, there's evidence, and we can even look at this. I talked about this on the podcast a few weeks ago. There is evidence that these oil companies have focused on the carbon tax as being something that they support, precisely because they know that everyone hates it, and they know that that should be a big part of our green agenda and their whole net zero agenda, because they know exactly how unpopular it is and how it just leads to them the outcomes that they want. The solution to inflation is literally for state seizure of assets and price controls, but liberals are not ready for that conversation. Nor are these hollow, fake, right-wing economic populists, right? Red Scare, like, this is what I'm talking about. You have the same guy saying, like, isn't these single moms are paying so much for groceries? Can you believe it? What's the solution? Is it to give single moms more money to buy groceries? Is it to raise wages? No, it's to cut the taxes of the people that control the grocery companies. And then you have our social democrats saying, like, no, we need to raise their taxes. We shouldn't cut their taxes. We should raise their taxes. And you have no one saying, why does three fucking families control this entire grocery industry in our country? Why don't we seize these assets and have a state-run grocery industry where we set the prices? And to going along, and that approach as well with the telecom companies, the oil and gas companies, and all these major industries which are privately run with massive subsidies in order to turn a profit. Yeah, they're liberals too. Social democrats also liberals, and this is it. It's neoliberalism all the way down. You have different mild tweaks that some of these people want to make around this system, but overall, it's all the exact same economic system with a few slight different approaches in policy. Just 1 second. I just want to find this one thing. I'll find this one thing that I was talking about. Yeah, when you talk about the carbon tax, which is now the carbon tax, which is like extremely unpopular, which leads to gains for the conservatives. Oil companies like Exxon were directly implicated in like promoting these policies to begin with.
Look, I think the first thing that I want to say before we really launch into this topic is that you often see stories like this coming out where it says, the government wants to introduce 15-minute cities, the government wants to charge you X amount to drive Y amount, or they're not going to allow you to leave your homes. And then, someone like Sadiq Khan is forced to come out and say, I'm not going to do this. And as soon as you say, I'm not going to do this, people look at that and they think, oh, well, that's a politician, I don't believe them. So it's been a really successful way of people who oppose any attempt to decarbonise the economy of saying, the government want you, the little person, the poor person, to pay the cost of this transition, and they want to keep you trapped in your homes and all these sorts of kind of scary things. And actually, this isn't something that the government is looking at. It's not something that Sadiq Khan is looking at. So we just need to make that very, very clear. The second point I want to make is that the reason we've ended up in this situation is that decarbonisation is supposed to be something that we do as a society. We've got 100 companies across the world who are responsible for 70% of emissions. People who are wealthier are disproportionately responsible for a huge amount of carbon emissions, and those who are poorer are not. So the costs of transitioning should be borne by those most able to bear it, those who emit the most, those who are most responsible for this phenomenon. And the way that we go towards a greener economy should be shared equally. We need to invest in making sure that the way we produce energy is different, so that when you turn on a light switch, it comes from a green source, or it's easier for you to get around using public transport. That requires a change in the way we think as a society, the way we do economic activity, not just individuals being penalised for the things they need to get by.
So penalising individuals for having or needing to drive their cars, perhaps, if you turn to a charge per mile. Ali, what do you think?
Well, look, on the charge per mile thing, I think if it does come in, it is going to be in addition to all the other taxes that are already being paid by drivers, which I think is wrong and unjust. If a pay per mile system comes in and it replaces all other vehicle taxes, fine, because I have a car, I live in inner London, I park my car, an extortionate amount of money I spend parking underground because my last car got nicked and the previous one had its roof slashed twice. Welcome to Sadiq Khan's London, by the way. And so I pay for this. I drive it.
But it's all right. You put it in there.
It is what it is. But the point is this. I drive my car once a month to go to the countryside because I want to breathe some fresh air and actually...
might get more fresh air with you, Les.
Fresh air in London.
Go on, I've got to keep you brief. Go on.
No, but the point is I'm fine with it if it replaces all the other taxes.
All right.
And I'm trying to just find this. Okay, here's, and listen, yeah, here. Here's what I was talking about. ExxonMobil lobbyist filmed saying oil giants' support for carbon tax is a PR ploy. Undercover reporter hears company work to undermine Biden efforts and funded shadow groups to deny global heating. Keith McCoy, a senior director in Exxon's Washington government affairs team, was recorded on video in May saying that the company backs a carbon tax, quote, as an easy talking point and an advocacy tool, because there is not an appetite for a carbon tax and that Republican legislators who oppose taxes in principle will never let it happen. That's the whole ploy of the carbon tax and the way that's been deliberately wielded by the actual oil companies, because they know how unpopular it is when you try to transfer the costs of climate change onto consumers, and they know that's just doomed to fail. No, sorry, Rod. They're going to solve climate change with carbon capture. That's right. They're going to invent the carbon capture technology that's going to solve this problem. As we've talked about a number of times, the number one form of carbon capture is called a forest. Hey, by the way, what's going on with all of those? Has there been anything in the news lately about what's going on with the various forests in Canada in particular? Or around the world? Yeah. But this is the whole thing about the carbon tax and the way that people in Canada have been able to demagogue around carbon taxes, which are unpopular, and as I've talked about before, are not going to do anything to meaningfully address the climate crisis. As I've talked about a number of times, a carbon tax would have been valuable. Would have been very valuable if it was put in place in 1980, when we knew climate change was happening, with this eerily accurate prediction. It's no longer a viable method to meaningfully combat this crisis. And it's incredibly unpopular, and which is exactly why these oil companies actually support this idea. It's actually fucking evil how you have these oil companies like Exxon and others who not only discovered climate change was happening and then covered it up, but the way they have their fingers in everything. They have their fingers in the climate denialism, and they have their fingers in the green transition solution as well, the net zero solution. You could look at YouTube and look at all these oil and gas companies. They've all got sustainable future, green energy, net zero propaganda. Meanwhile, they're funding the denialism on one side with one hand, and they're funding the green agenda, which just continues to promote their exact values and their exact interests. And then you have people like Pierre Poilievre demagoguing about a carbon tax and, suggesting that that's the reason that groceries cost too much.
We're taking a look at all of our operations and putting together roadmaps to determine how could we get there. We see different avenues as required to achieve our net zero ambition. It is widely recognized that many different technologies are going to be required. The European business has multiple avenues to continue reducing emissions. We're advancing use of hydrogen and carbon capture and storage as options for further emissions reductions. This energy transition is going to be happening on such a large scale, and I think we have some really exciting opportunities to play a major part. I really look forward to being able to be a part of the solution.
Yeah, you love that generic, upbeat, overly used corporate propaganda. Of course. ExxonMobil is all over this. They're all over this green transition. Meanwhile, they're funding all the media that demagogues against wind power and against all these green energy
For the most
solutions.
part, my daily activities include climbing wind turbines, troubleshooting wind turbines, servicing wind turbines, maintaining them, and also helping with a little bit of the data analytics that goes on here in the lab.
In a wind turbine, the most important component being lubricated is the gearbox. Here at Weekend, the tower is equipped with an elevator, which gets you about 3/4 of the way. So the last quarter takes me about 1 minute and 15 seconds to climb.
When you do climb large wind turbine, you're climbing mostly on the inside of the tower, so you don't really get the perspective on how high you actually are till you climb outside the nacelle. And then when you start seeing the tree line below you and you realize that you can see miles and miles out in the horizon, it's quite shocking and quite exciting at the same time.
I would not like to be up there. Exxon. Thank you, Exxon. Thank you, Exxon, for celebrating our wind turbine engineers. There are a lot of clean energy tax credits being offered in the U.S., by the way. I read a little fact sheet on them just this week. Well, that's one thing, Red Scare, that we've talked about that Bidenomics is actually doing. Like they've talked about their unprecedented historic commitment to climate change stuff and how much of a low bar that is. But they did introduce a lot of clean energy tax credits that are getting these solar companies and EV battery companies to build factories, primarily in like red states. This is their whole like green economic policy. It's like, let's have these clean energy tax credits and reindustrialize these red states with green jobs, which is an interesting strategy. And like, I mean, it's not doing nothing. It's probably better than what the Republican or the conservative or reactionary agenda is. But the funny thing about it is a lot of people in these red state communities that are getting these new factories and new jobs are like, fuck Brandon. It's China. It's China and Brandon building these factories. I don't want them. So we'll see how that works out. You also literally get cash back per kilowatt of non-fossil fuel energy you produce, like these wind farms. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There are initiatives happening that are bringing these kind of green energy investments to America. And there's no question about that. But that's the thing. If they lose their grip on power and they have a reactionary backlash to that, like there's no guarantee that it's going to take hold in any meaningful way. Like, I think it's important to make that distinction while we recognize that the Bidens and the Trudeaus are not doing nearly enough and, in fact, are contributing to the crisis just as much as anyone. As we know, the United States military is the number one carbon emitter in the world. You can't make this investment into green energy and green jobs and then still have the highest military budget in U.S. history and be like, look how great of a job I'm doing in reducing emissions. Like, they're actually not. I was just saying Exxon is getting their piece of the pie. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's right. Like, these companies are, in the same way that oil and gas has gotten subsidized for so many decades, and it's so heavily subsidized here as well. It's like, oh yeah, we'll just start subsidizing wind and solar to a lesser extent, but maybe a little bit more. So these big companies are like, okay, well now that we're, getting our hands held to the extent that we would like, now we'll invest in these things. It's Central Committee. China's doing about 3 times as much as we are this year, and they're the reason that solar panels and batteries are actually economical, and that we may have a chance to do something if we ever get an actual left-wing leader in this country, only because Chada has made it possible. Well, that's what I mean, Mike, and thanks for stopping by. But I was talking about that Inflation Reduction Act policy of like reindustrializing these red states through these kinds of tax credits, and how they're luring these EV battery and solar panel manufacturing companies to build factories in these red states. But because because of the way that this technology, the way that China has invested in this technology, all these companies have links to China, like systematically. And then you have all these people in red states seeing communist Joe Biden working with the CCP to bring factory jobs back to their communities, and they're like, we don't want this, get this out of here, we hate this. And this is it, Red Scary. I mean, this is what we keep going back to, right? It's neoliberalism all the way down. We give tax credits and subsidies for investing in green energy, which is, okay, yeah, it's better than nothing, but you're the state. Why don't you just build the shit yourself? Why don't you just sell the groceries yourself? Why don't you just build social housing yourself? Why don't you just manage this green energy transition yourself? No, we can't do that. We can't do that. We have to incentivize we just haven't incentivized the private industry to do these investments enough. We can't, and then the market will take care of it. And that's a good point too. The reason why these companies are building factories in red states because they're a right to work state, so they don't have to have union jobs. But also, I think part of it is an intentional thing on Brandon's behalf as well, because they're trying to see, like, look at all the jobs that Democrats are bringing to these states that normally vote Republican, like kind of trying to bribe Republican voters. But as we know, that's not going to actually have any impact, because they would think Democrats are Satan worshiping child traffickers. So, and they think China is like the new Nazi Germany. Aren't a lot of the jobs being created also gig work, which aren't great jobs? Yeah, I mean, that's a good point that we talked about as well, is whenever Biden or anyone else lectures about how great the economy is because they look at unemployment numbers, when they've like systematically, they're kicking people off of food stamps. They had a minor, meager sort of social welfare state that was created during COVID. They rolled all that back. And yeah, people that were getting unemployment or people that were getting the child tax credit, or they were able to like actually get assistance to pay rent and buy groceries, all of a sudden don't have that anymore. So they got to get 5 different jobs with Uber Eats and Postmates and whatever else. And then they say, look at our great job numbers. The economy is just humming along. It's just humming. Everyone's lives going great now. When the person that we're talking about, the hypothetical person, their life has decreased in quality in that time, and their material means have decreased as well. They were doing better getting unemployment benefits during COVID than they're getting from Uber or whatever other gig economy company. Yeah, no, it's Mike. We've been talking about that a lot. The way this, like the way the finger wagging lectures are coming out. Actually, everything's going great. The economy's great. Look at these numbers. Look at our precious line is just going up. And ignoring all the very real and obvious ways that people's material realities are just continuing to decline and decline and decline. That sounds like 5 jobs to me. That's right. That counts. That counts as 5 new jobs. Anyway, we can go back to more of these fucking dipshits. At the conservative conference. What kind of a sicko do you have to be to go to CPAC?
Who's ready for common sense? Bring it back.
Just common sense. Cut taxes. Get the red tape out of there.
I'm a proud Canadian, a proud Albertan, and I'm proud to be a chief from the Enoch Cree Nation, and proud to be the former Grand Chief of the Confederacy of Treaty 6.
Oh, and sorry, I didn't say thank you 4 minutes ago, but thanks, Young Spinach, for the gifted sub. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You know, Enoch Cree Nation is a place where rural Alberta meets the urban capital of our great province. You know, similar to beautiful Quebec City and the Wendake, which I had the privilege of visiting. You know, it's a place of community, of family, of hard workers who believe in building a strong future for our next generations. But it's unfortunately a place that I really, really know a thing or two about government gatekeepers. Oh man. So when I heard the message of Pierre Poilievre sharing about the outside role of government gatekeepers and the role they play in blocking prosperity in this country, I was ecstatic. I thought to myself, finally, someone who recognizes...
Man, Indigenous people at the conservative conference. That's very grim.
The way that economic development and opportunities are undermined in this country.
And it's a good example of how identity politics in and of themselves are not inherently progressive or good. Yeah, we're ready for common sense policies that are going to help Indigenous people, like cutting the taxes of the oil and gas companies so they can build pipelines. And take all the oil and gas that they produce out of this region and funnel it to the coast, so you can refine it elsewhere, and the profits for these massive oil conglomerates all go up, and their shareholders all make money. That's what we need to do.
Look at some of the ways Pierre has promised to overturn the gatekeeping that occurs in Canada every day. After 8 years of Trudeau, work doesn't pay like it used to. It means that when you earn an extra buck, you lose as much as 80 cents to taxes and clawbacks. A recent report by Finance Canada showed just how much an extra dollar earned for Canadians would do for them. It's not great news. A single mother earning $55,000, for example, if she made an extra dollar, she now loses 80 cents due to high taxes and government clawbacks. Just this week, this one hits home. Just this week, my niece texted me. She's a young mom of 3 in her 20s, and she said, Billy, times are tough right now. I really use your guidance. I need a second job. I need some advocacy.
Yeah, the 80% tax rate on workers.
We
Okay.
have to actually have an unfortunate conversation about the clawback she would actually experience from getting more work for herself. So Canadians want to work. They want to earn. They want to help their families. So, what do? Pierre and us Conservatives will make sure that their hard work pays by cutting taxes and eliminating clawbacks that punish work, so Canadians...
And the cutting the taxes. You're cutting your boss's taxes, all the precious workers. The idea that their taxes are getting cut or their lives are going to get better. It's their fucking bosses. They're the ones getting the tax cuts.
...can keep more of the dollars they earn.
Embarrassing. I know we got some cop as well to chime in.
And the facts are clear. Even if Justice Minister Varani is trying to convince Canadians that their eyes and their ears are deceiving them, crime is up in Canada.
Not true.
Stats Canada backs that up. In my hometown of Ottawa, calls for police are up. There's been 50 shootings citywide this year alone. Just last weekend...
Well, then what the fuck are the cops doing? Maybe you should get off your asses and stop some of these shootings from happening. As much as Pierre Poilievre in that video is like, our precious cops are just... Single mom cops are dodging bullets like Neo in the Matrix during the day. And then going home and can't get groceries at night. Well, fucking, it's your job. Do your job. How many of those shootings involved cops? The calls went up during a certain occupation of Ottawa as well. Yes, I wonder if that had anything to do with it. Which all the Ottawa police all supported, by the way. It's crazy. If cops do a bad job, they need more money to do better. If cops do a good job, they need more money to keep doing a good job. Heads, they win. Tails, we lose. And you know what? We need cops. That's the solution to all these problems. You know, the homelessness crisis, the unhoused community, tent encampments. Should we put them in housing? No, more cops. Immigration, yeah, we better hire more cops. If I do my job bad, can I get a raise? That's what it's being a cop. It's a pretty good deal.
We had 8 innocent people shot, with 2 killed at a wedding. And the rising crime is nationwide. 2 days ago, 3 OPP officers were stabbed in the line of duty by a repeat violent offender. And we know that these violent crimes are going unchecked by poor decision-making by the Liberal government, who are more concerned about moral grandstanding than the reality that we see in our streets.
Look at the Ottawa budget and the Toronto police budget and the Montreal police budget. Astronomical. As always, the highest public spending is going to cops.
Correctional systems have become revolving doors. Liberal jail reform lets criminals out.
You can count on
the
me. You're
same
going to
day
have good
that
old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you, Diego. Thank you for the gifted sub. Very much appreciated.
they're arrested. It's time for a system that works.
What is there like an age limit of like if you're under 75 you can't get into this conference?
Bail reform. It's time for jail, not bail, for repeat violent offenders.
We need more people in jails. More money for cops, more people in jails. Which are, of course, filled disproportionately with indigenous people.
Didn't we? You remember that? We had a deal in this country for a long time, didn't we? You remember that? Feels like a long time ago. Wasn't that long ago? It was a deal that you work hard, you follow the laws, you get a good house in a good, safe neighborhood. You make a good living for your family, and you have a great life.
The reason this doesn't exist anymore is because of neoliberal economic policies, which they all agree with.
Is now broken. We have 35-year-olds like me, people I could have went to high school with, living in their parents' basements because the cost of housing, of mortgage payments, rent payments, down payments has literally doubled under Trudeau's watch.
And what's the solution? Cut the taxes of the developers, cut deregulation, cut the taxes of the landlords, and cut social services as well.
It now takes around 25 years to save for a down payment on a house in Toronto. And I'm not too young to remember there was a time where in 25 years you could be expected to pay off your mortgage. That's not the case in Canada anymore. And all the Liberals have to offer when we ask them, how are we going to fix this, are excuses and promises that they're going to think about it. Imagine that, Liberals thinking. I mean, how much confidence can we have in that, right? But they are not.
25 years for a down payment. Weird. How do you increase wages, my guy? Well, that's the thing. None of these people want people's... First of all, they don't want housing costs to go down, as we've covered before. That's the big thing that they don't ever mention. It's so much to cost. Buying a home is just so expensive. People are living in their basements. They say it over and over. They're living in their parents' basements. Well, golly gee whiz. Oh, shucks. Housing prices are just so high. Easy question. Do you want housing prices to go down? No. They all invest in the housing market. Pierre Poilievre is a landlord. Across this ideologically uniform across this country, people, the NDP, the Liberal Party, the Conservative Party, they're all fucking landlords. They want the housing prices to continue going up. No. We just want everyone's wages to go up so they can afford these new homes. Well, how are you going to make their wages go up? Cut their boss's taxes. We don't want the housing prices to go down. We just want people to be able to make more money so they can afford this stuff. And we're going to make them make more money not by raising wages, but by cutting their boss's taxes. I'm a right-wing economic populist.
With concrete actions. And they're failing not just young people, they're also failing seniors. When I knock on doors in Clarington, in Oshawa, in Scugog, I meet many seniors, many of whom cannot afford to live in the house they've been in for years. They're struggling in this crisis as well. Some of them even being evicted from their homes because of the neglect of our government. The time for excuses and empty Liberal promises is over. It's time for conservative solutions. Yes. No better kind of solution, is there? No better kind.
Afraid to say, hey, we have a leader who has common sense and who is not afraid to say, hey, wait a minute.
The common sense thing is their big McKinsey
no sense. Change it. Just
slogan.
Like he did back in 2010 when he helped change the Employment Insurance Act so that our soldiers could take the parental leave that was being denied them because their deployments were longer than the qualifying period. This meant that some new fathers stationed overseas while their children were born had to forfeit their parental leave time instead of being able to take it home when they returned from their mission.
Honestly, Red Scare, I've never heard of Scugog. Never in my life.
He met while knocking on doors. And he listened to that soldier, and he pushed to amend the regulation, and it has made a huge difference to hundreds of our troops and their families. This is the sort of common sense leadership
Canadians. Let's not forget, this is hammering Canadians where they work, where they live, and where they raise their families. And so, there's no policy better that shows how out of touch with Canadians this Liberal government really is than this hated Trudeau carbon tax. This tax is particularly punitive, as we know, in rural parts of the country. In Atlantic Canada, where I'm from, people have no choice but to drive their vehicles to work in factories, in fields, in places of work. They have no choice. They don't have public transit. They don't have alternative energy sources in many cases.
Should we build more public transit? Well, no.
So it is, again, a divisive and punishing policy that has been imposed on the country. The carbon tax increases the cost of everything, but particularly on the horizon in a cold Canadian winter is the cost of home heating fuel, of propane, of natural gas. Now, I, for one, coming from Atlantic Canada, sure wish we had an Energy East pipeline right now, bringing good Canadian, safe, ethical oil to Atlantic Canada.
That is not what...
To the world.
To export to the world. That is not what pipeline, like he made the connection between, it's like the idea that if only there was a pipeline bringing natural gas there, our energy prices would go down. The natural gas the pipeline isn't going into your home to provide energy. It's going to be, he even admitted himself, it exports to everyone else. And is the state making money from exporting that natural gas? No, the fucking oil and natural gas companies are making the profits. There's zero connection between people having a hard time heating their homes in Atlantic Canada and, oh yeah, we just need to build a pipeline so we can export that around the world. Like, what the fuck does that have anything to do with that? If only the oil was coming here so it could go elsewhere. That's literally what he's saying. They want to get rid of the climate tax. Okay, but what is the solution to the problem then? Well, I mean, that Poilievre's talked about it. He's just like, yeah, of course we need to get rid of the climate tax, or the carbon tax, excuse me, and then we're just going to invest in renewable energy. But of course, less than Trudeau. So nowhere near enough already, even if they do that at all, which they won't. So they have no solution to the problem. They even barely admit the problem exists. Because their followers think that it's woke to talk about. So if they talk about it at all, it's like, yeah, let's get rid of the carbon tax and we'll just invest in wind and solar and nuclear and these other alternative energies, which they're not going to do. Because Rob, it would put more money in the boss's pockets. It will also cut the taxes of, and this will magically then trickle down. Exactly. If we just enrich our Dickensian oligarchs even more, they'll pass through our towns and villages in their carriages and throw twinkling coins at the masses. Wouldn't that be wonderful? This whole thing is just peasant mentality. It's the peasant mentality of the people that lap this up, and it's literally just like, we need to ensure that our economic betters are doing even better than they are currently. That's right-wing economic populism. That's amazing. If only we could export the oil here and then export that around the world with a pipeline. How does that impact people having a hard time heating their homes? You're admitting yourself that the energy isn't actually staying here. It's going elsewhere. The fossil fuels that we're extracting. And it's not nationalized. Like I said before, it would be one thing if our oil and gas industry was nationalized and we were exporting it and then taking the billions of dollars of profits from exporting it and investing it in schools and public healthcare and green energy, reinvesting it. That's not what is happening, though. That's not what is happening. That's not what is happening. When we extract these fossil fuels and export them, it's making the line go up for the fossil fuel company CEOs and shareholders. And we might get a little pittance, you know? Marty, watch it. Watch it. I'm doing my best. Oh, it's just enough to just make me want to smack my head with a hammer and just forget I ever learned about any of this stuff. Yeah, it like that's the thing. You said trickle on economics. I can only assume you mean trickle down economics, Goober not. I'm assuming, but that's the annoying thing about this is it's just the same thing that's been proven to not make anyone's lives better. It's been proven for 40 years now that this kind of cutting taxes for the wealthy does not lead to material gains for working class people. It simply does not. There's zero connection between these two things. And in fact, lo and behold, only makes inequality worse and only makes people's material conditions get worse. There's mountains of evidence that have proven this by now. But we're still, and they just come up with different names for it. Just these common sense solutions, the exact same things we've been doing. And different little feints to kind of wrap this same tired policy. And you talk about wokeness or talk about whatever else. Just to reinforce the exact same policies, which we know for sure do not actually decrease inequality. Trickle on as in piss down. Okay, Goober not. So apparently I'm the dumbass here. Apparently I'm the goober in this situation for not understanding that basic analogy. And look at this guy in the audience too. He's like, yes, trickle down economics. Why has no one tried this? Why has no one tried this? Thank God we have these common sense solutions finally being proposed. You know, folks, one economic system that does work, that improves everyone's lives, is an economic policy known as the friendship triangle system. That's Twitch's only two-dimensional triangle-shaped friendship access and trickle-down clout tiered reward system. Now I'm sitting here, ranting and raving about all this stuff, watching this extremely painful and horrible conservative conference footage so we can have these conversations, these important conversations and analysis and discussions. But the only way, folks, that this show is able to stay on the air is through the kind and generous contributions of you, the chat, the chatter, the viewer, the listener. So if you can, friends, please, very close to the goal. We're 8 subs away from the goal, going on 2.5 hours into this stream. This stream is powered by 2 things, the chat and clean oil. That's right. Marx actually was talking about the friendship triangle economy in Capital Volume 1 just last night. This is real theory. So folks, we're 8 subs away from the goal. We're finishing out the week strong. We've had a wonderful week of streaming. It's been great to have TRRS back at its mostly normal time, mostly normal schedule. I will be, unless there's holidays and other stuff, going 5 days a week from this point, moving forward. There's no need to read Capital. Mark said that Rob was good. Thank you.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Triangle Gang Gang.
Ramuskin Red, thank you for the 30-month resub at tier 3. Fancy. Thank you, Ramuskin Red. And I should remind everyone that it is September, so if you're a new chatter or an unsubbed viewer or listener, it is you can subscribe to this channel at a discount right now, which is very exciting. Not only can you support me and the content that I create here on twitch.tv, but you can also get all the tiny little images, and you become part of the wonderful, dynamic community known as the Friendship Triangle. And you can do so at a discount. And that goes to anyone that is interested in upgrading their sub from a tier 1 sub to a tier 2 or tier 3 with some even more elite and exclusive tiny little images on there as well. Or upgrading from a 1-month subscription to a 3-month or a 6-month. Now we're only 7 subs away from the goal, folks. We're only 7 subs away. So do we have any other brave heroes that want to step to the plate here and subscribe to TRRS, help the little number go up, help this show stay on the air?
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Thank you, Top Scruffy. That's so kind of you, Top Scruffy, for the 5 gifted subs. That is what I'm talking about. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And we even have Coping Mechanism asking for a sub in the chat and somehow dodged that gift, that 5 subby gift, unfortunately. Maybe another brave hero can step up and gift a sub to our friend. First time chatter, Coping Mechanism. We got 2 subs left to go, and we got a number of unsub viewers that would love to be part of this community.
Have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Thank you so much, Diego, for another gifted sub as well. I really appreciate all the support, Diego. Thank you. And there you go, coping mechanism. Now you have all the wonderful TRRS emotes, some of the very best emotes on this platform. And we will have new emotes soon. We got season 4 coming up. There's going to be big changes, new emotes, new stuff. All kinds of great stuff coming up in season 4, which starts November 5th. Wednesday, November 5th is the season 4 premiere. I would also encourage people to join the Discord server if you're new to the community. And that's why I really appreciate the gifted sub there, because I always enjoy when we get new community members joining us. Really fantastic. So if you're just joining the community as well, please join that Discord server. It's really, really fantastic. Okay, I'm just going to take a small break, all right? I'm going to take a small break, and I'll be back here for another hour after. And I'm confident I can make up that last sub. I am confident I can make up the last one.
You can count on me.
And there we go.
Good old
Look at that.
Rob to talk you through all this.
Look at that. Anon. Thank you, Anon, for the gifted sub. So kind of you, Anon. Thank you. Dodged again. We got a couple of dodgers here. We got a couple of artful dodgers. Dodging the subs. Christ-like anonymous gifter. Thank you. Exactly. As I've said many times, the most Christ-like of all sub gifters. Yeah, so I'll take a break. I'll go to the bathroom. I'll come back, and maybe there's some video we can watch or something else. I think I've ranted and raved enough about conservative populism and Pierre Poilievre. As frustrating as that has been to poison my own brain and your brains as well with that information. The fact that this completely phony, tired, rebranded neoliberalism is being sold to people whose material conditions are declining in this country, and they're saying, yummy, delicious neoliberal slop. Thank you. Finally, someone is brave enough to suggest should cut my boss's taxes. Finally, a brave hero, political outsider is stepping up to say that poor people have had it too good for too long in this country. Finally, someone has the guts to say it. I'll be right back, folks. I'll find some kind of a... Let's see here. I'll be right back, okay?
The king of the workers of the world.
Hi, folks.
Joe's the king because he can buy more with his wages than any other worker on the globe. Now, what makes it possible for Joe to earn such a good living? He's no smarter than workers in other countries.
Are you kidding?
He's no stronger than workers in other lands.
Oh, yeah? Well, just watch me.
Just because Joe's an American doesn't mean...
Yeah? Well, being an American is the best thing in the... Oh! My back!
Sure, being an American is great, But how could you be superior to any foreigner when you or your folks might be any one of a dozen different races or religions? So, if you're no Superman, it must be the American way of doing things that makes you the luckiest guy in the world.
I don't think I'm so lucky.
You don't? Well, let me show you.
Hey, what's that gadget? Television?
No, it's a time machine. Just pull that lever. You'll see how people worked 100 years ago.
Hey, this I like.
Oh, that's too far back. Try again. We want to stop at 1850.
Who's the character?
That's your grandfather, Joe.
Oh.
He had to work 69 hours a week to earn a living because he had only inexpensive hand tools and his own strength to help him make things. Your grandfather was a powerful man, yet his strength equaled only 1/10 of a horsepower. You have hundreds of horsepower in this costly giant of a machine to multiply your strength and efficiency 1,000 times. This makes it possible for you to earn more than any worker in history. And still have leisure time each day to enjoy life.
So I'm lucky. But what about the rich guy who does nothing while I do the work?
True, there are rich people who contribute nothing. And there are poor people who contribute the same. But most of the invested capital that buys the tools you use comes from your fellow Americans. 40 million of us have money in the banks. 70 million of us own insurance policies. Over 15 million of us invest savings in corporation stocks and bonds, which help to finance industry. Each year, the people of America invest billions of dollars to create new plants and equipment. This invested capital buys the tools which make a man's labor worth more because he produces more. In China, for example, where there is practically no capital available for investment in plants or tools, a man's labor is not worth very much. A coolie takes 10 days to move 10 gallons of kerosene 100 miles at a freight cost of 10 cents a gallon. An American railroad worker takes only 2 hours to move 100,000 gallons of kerosene 100 miles at a freight cost of 1 cent a gallon. The coolie makes 10 cents a day. An average American railroad worker makes $10 a day, or 100 times more than the coolie. The average railroad worker has the benefit of a $20,000 investment in equipment. The Chinese coolie's equipment is worth only 10 cents. With constant improvement in expensive tools and the skill to use them, the value of any man's labor can be multiplied many times. Naturally, the people in this country who invest their savings with industry expect dividends. No dividends, no investments. Without new capital each year to finance new plants, tools, and equipment, labor and management would soon find themselves in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, without capital to buy new tools, I might not do so good. But look what a new invention did to my grandpa. For 25 years, he knocks his brains out in the wagon works. Then along comes the gas buggy. Need I tell you what happened to Grandpop?
The history of our country proves that new inventions create thousands of jobs for everyone they displace. So it wasn't long before your grandfather had a better job, at more pay for less work. Our industrial progress is largely the result of the competitive struggle between companies to capture the market to increase profits. Huge sums are spent each year to make a better product to sell for less. Yet, regardless of how much money is spent to develop a new idea, there is often failure. When research proves successful, everyone shares in the accomplishment. The business which fails to give the consumer as much value as a competitor gives often goes bankrupt. However, on a national scale, competition gives the greatest good to the greatest number by continually producing more and better goods at lower prices. The American way of doing things makes it possible for more people to own their own homes. We're only 7% of the world's population, but we have 50% of the radios. We have 54% of the world's telephones. Americans own practically all the refrigerators in existence to give them plenty of ice quickly and easily. Bathtubs, we've got 92% of them. Most of us have the leisure time to enjoy the peace and quiet of the beautiful countryside as we drive about in 72% of the world's automobiles.
Don't just turn at the last corner. You don't eat it. You eat it. I don't like it. I want a candy bar.
Under the protection of our freedoms, American labor, management, and capital, the greatest production team in the history of mankind, have made the United States the industrial master of the world. Capital must continue to provide industry with the funds to create new tools and plants. Labor and management must continue to increase the production of better goods at lower prices so that more people will be able to buy the things that make life easier and happier for all of us. Then Joe will continue to be the king of the workers of the world.
You said it, brother.
Did we all learn something? I assume we all learned something now. I think we understand how the economic system works. We've all learned a little something here today. Did the patriotic socialist all watch this? Yeah, I think so. I was a staunch anti-capitalist before watching that cartoon, but now I'm sold. Good. That was my intention. Making me watch this was so evil. I like you less for showing us this. Cruel, cruel streamer. I think it's worthwhile looking at this propaganda though, right? To see how this was like sold to people, these kinds of ideas. And I missed a lot of that. I wasn't totally paying attention, but I do think it's interesting to talk about like American economic prosperity. You know, this is right in the post-war era, right? And talking about this kind of like collaboration between the bosses and the workers and how you need to have this. Because as we know, like what led to the actual increase in prosperity of America were all these policies that these wealthy capitalists and industrialists all despised. Literally 100% of it debunked by Marx in Capital Volume 1. Oh, sorry, I didn't know there was a horrid racist depictions of Chinese people in this video. I mean, that's despicable. But again, I do think it's worthwhile to look at how modern American capitalism was sold to people as being the most prosperous economic system, even if it's painful to look at and evil. you know? Because we still see to this day people like Pierre Poilievre and these right-wing economic populists, to tie it into what we were talking about before. They're selling these similar ideas to people still to this day. We have more TVs than anyone else, and TVs equals rights, so American workers have the most rights. That's right. I mean, like maybe there's something we can look at about that. But the ways that like consumer products are this sign of like prosperity, the consumer products that are available to people, and that's what's really fascinating about the way that like America has been sanctioning China and Chinese tech companies and chip companies, and refusing to allow these companies to, or doing everything that they can to stop them from developing like 5G technology and chip technologies so they can make these products. And now Huawei is doing that despite the sanctions. There's this tweet from like a year ago from some dipshit saying like, you've seen now the entire Chinese chip industry just wiped out with one swoop of a pen, bragging about it, and that has not been true. And it's incredible because America's freaking out about it. They're freaking out about it. They're like, you are not allowed to develop these products. Like they're just saying, like no American has to like actually get and justify why they advocate for these policies to sanction other countries' abilities to create these things. Why is it up to America whether China is able to create these products or not? Calling Americans kings of the workers of the world is so funny. Well, that's what I mean too. It's like you might make the argument that white male American workers from the post-war period till like the 70s or so, when the New Deal program started to collapse in on itself, you could make that case because they had like every advantage, right? They had the advantage of imperialism working on their benefit. They had like all these companies that were going, like these massive corporation and conglomerates and these multi-billionaire oligarchs that were going along with this kind of project reluctantly, while sanctioning and trying to destroy, the USSR and other societies that are trying to implement their own economic agenda. So you could maybe make that case during that post-war period when the marginal tax rate was, 90%, and when education was so cheap and there were great union jobs to get. Yeah, that was a pretty good deal for a certain class of American workers, certainly not everybody. Conditions for working people in the Soviet Union increased a lot, but they had way less resources to work with. And they had to industrialize their entire nation in the span of like a fucking decade, and lost 30 million people in the war. It was a pretty good deal for American workers in that period, but that was precisely because of economic policies that all these capitalists and the ownership class all were against, and spent the next several decades chipping away at until it was all gone away. Yeah, and you still are just a wage slave. You're not part of the ownership class, nor will you ever be. You will never actually be benefiting from the profits that you're creating. You're getting a bigger piece of the pie, though, than most wage slaves around the world. For now, because we've allowed you to. I wonder if Ben has anything on these the whole chip stuff. I think Carl Jah might as well. The U.S. is truly, Ben Norton says, the U.S. is truly a megalomaniacal authoritarian regime that thinks the entire world is its property. U.S. officials are complaining that China violated illegal unilateral U.S. sanctions because Chinese state company SMIC gave chip tech to Chinese company Huawei. China's top chip maker appears to have violated sanctions. U.S. Congressman says, the U.S. essentially believes China and every other country must get U.S. permission to do trade even with itself. The U.S. unilaterally sanctioned China and complains that a Chinese firm violated the sanctions the U.S. unilaterally imposed by trading with another firm. And that was the whole thing with the Iranian sanctions as well, right? That's why we're locking. That's what the whole thing with the two Michaels and Canada and Meng Wanzhou and Huawei. Because you violated these sanctions that we unilaterally imposed on Iran after making a deal with Iran that we were going to relieve the sanctions and then just spitting in their faces for no reason. You violated these unilateral sanctions. So we're going to lock up your prominent national as a result. And then they snatch up a couple of our guys and we're like, what? How can you do this? And they're like, okay, well, you know, you're going to do this to us. We're going to snatch up some of your guys. And then we have a 2-year-long national freakout over our beautiful boys being imprisoned unjustly. You know, unilateral sanctions from the U.S. were the inciting incident of that entire event, though. Yeah, I would love to get one of those new Huawei phones. As I've talked about before, I want China to have my data. I'm not only am I not worried about it, I want them to know that I'm one of the good ones. Let's see, I think we can look at some content about this, because I think this is a really interesting story to cover. There must be a good video on this. I think Carl Jha has been talking about it as well. Really, I should get Carl back on the show to talk about this. You want to understand Chinese economy, forget Western charlatans like Peter Zahan, follow Glenn. And I will.
Woke up this morning, you probably were met with a barrage of anti-Chinese headlines in the mainstream media, the corporate media. And whenever I see a sort of a coordinated effort on different headlines by mainstream publications, I'm always a little skeptical, a little cynical. The cynical bastard in me pops out. So let me just run through a quick number of these here. The Wall Street Journal reports that Chinese spies are infiltrating the U.S. military bases by asking for a Burger King. That's a weird story.
That's how you dupe the Americans every time.
Ready to conduct military exercises with Russia.
Americans are just like,
and North Korea
burgers,
in response to the U.S.
it's
conducting
over
military
here.
exercises in South
Here in this
Korea.
top secret
And then
military
this
base.
Huawei phone story. This is pretty amazing. The Wall Street
Instantly
Journal
hypnotize
reported
any
Huawei
American
introducing a
just
brand
talking
new
about
smartphone,
birds.
But how in the world did they pull that off? Given the fact that there's massive amounts of U.S. sanctions. Did they find a loophole here? So to unpack all of this and about all these China headlines simultaneously, we wanted to bring in Carl Jha to discuss this and break this all down. Carl, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Hi, Clayton. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So let's start with the phone thing, because that seems to be like a simple entry point here. The Wall Street Journal, this Huawei story, that's all, everyone's in a rage about this, that they can get a new Huawei phone. But how in the world they are able to pull this off? The Wall Street Journal, the U.S. seems to be shocked that
Where's that tweet where the guy predicted that it was going to be
able to create one of the best
dead.
smartphones in the world? How do they do this?
Exactly. It's no secret that U.S. is trying to kill Huawei for a long time. They had sanctions on Huawei. They had arrested the Huawei founder's daughter, Meng Wanzhou. They had her arrested in Canada, put her under house arrest for busting Iran sanctions. And I think that the trigger is when the Huawei moved to the 5G technology. That really freaked the U.S. government out, because Huawei has been building out telecom networks all across the world. Here I am sitting in Bali, Indonesia. We are using the 4G network that's built by Huawei. But when Huawei moved on to 5G, U.S. decided that's not acceptable. They actually stopped their allies like United States, like the UK and UK, Canada, Australia, all the Five Eyes countries using Huawei. One of their excuse is.
What's really amazing about all this is the United States just put $500 million towards anti-China propaganda, but don't worry, it's not going to influence of American domestic media. No, that was only for foreign media audiences. No propaganda here. Yeah. Well, in Canada too, as well, Mike. We've talked about it a lot, but the absolute hysteria in our media about like Chinese foreign influence in our elections and all this stuff is like fucking incredible. And yeah, you've got the United States government pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into promoting that. You know, it's not a coincidence.
Is national security, because the U.S. intelligence agencies, they have a back door to all the telecom networks. But their concern if Huawei start to build these telecom networks in UK, in Germany, in Australia, not only U.S. intelligence agency won't able to get a back door, but they think, well, then the Chinese government will get a back door. So that's not...
Here, and just to point it out too, this is the tweet that I was referring to. Amazing stuff. How they've been and this whole last year has been such, or the last 2 years or so, have been such a incredible like lesson in how much America's ability to wage this kind of economic warfare through sanctions has completely collapsed. You know, and you're seeing that accelerate with the formation of these new institutions and collaborations like BRICS, right? But the massive sanctions regime on Russia has completely backfired, completely failed. And their whole effort to use sanctions to try and limit China's ability to create this kind of technology and these kind of consumer products has completely failed. And this is the infamous tweet from this guy. This is what the experts were saying just last year. This is what annihilation looks like. China's semiconductor manufacturing industry was reduced to zero overnight. Complete collapse. No chance of survival. And now they've put out this new phone and people are just losing their fucking minds. And it's just American. It's so arrogant. And it goes back to that colonialist mentality as well, that America thinks it has the right to dictate to other countries like what they can make or not. Like the Biden, they just decided that they were going to try and destroy China's semiconductor manufacturing industry. And this is how they tried to do it. The U.S. government's new export controls, new rules around U.S. persons are driving an industry-wide decapitation. Lots of people don't know what happened yesterday. To put it simply, Biden has forced all Americans working in China to pick between quitting their jobs and losing American citizenship. Like, why are they allowed to do that? Well, I don't know, because they're the big boss of the global capitalism, I guess. Every American executive and engineer working in China's semiconductor manufacturing industry resigned yesterday, paralyzing Chinese manufacturing overnight. One round of sanctions from Biden did more damage than all 4 years of performative sanctioning under Trump. Here you see these liberal reactionary mindset as well. Biden is even more harsh, waging economic warfare on China than Trump is. Trump is soft on China. You have both sides calling each other soft on China. And we're having that in Canada as well, also. Although American semiconductor exporters had to apply for licenses during the Trump years, licenses were approved within a month. With the new Biden sanctions, all American suppliers of IP blocks, components, and services departed overnight, thus cutting off all service to China. Long story short, every advanced node semiconductor company is currently facing comprehensive supply cutoff, resignations from all American staff, and immediate operations paralysis. This is what annihilation looks like. China's semiconductor manufacturing industry was reduced to zero overnight. Complete collapse. No chance of survival. And then when they, in fact, do not suffer these consequences that they're predicting, and they're able to create this technology in spite of these sanctions, then you have U.S. Congress people saying like, no, they must have violated the sanctions because these two Chinese companies are trading with one another. No, that's not fair. That's not allowed. That's not allowed. By the way, this was actually such a stupid blunder that instead of China relying on the United States and being interdependent, they're going to develop their own capacity and they will outperform us because they use state-owned enterprise and are not at the whim of capitalist neoliberal scum. And we talk about this a lot, how it's this kind of belligerence that forces these places to become more independent and forces them to become more sovereign. Like, rather than relying on American companies, they're like, okay, we'll figure it out on our own. Or forcing nations that have a lot of big differences, such as China and Russia and Venezuela and Cuba and DPRK and Iran. All these countries with very different societies and cultures and economic systems, forcing them to work together because they're like, regardless, we have one common interest, which is that we need to develop an economic system that allows us to get out from under the thumb of the economic warfare that can be waged at any time by the United States. And it forces all these places together. It forces as well countries in the developing world to go look out for other alternatives as well, because these harsh when they make deals with the IMF, these developing countries, these like harsh economic reforms that are put in place, the way the IMF says, no, if you're going to take this deal, you're going to be on the hook for us. You're going to pay all this debt back. You have to do austerity. You have to cut social spending. You have to do this kind of like neoliberal economic grift that we demand. Lo and behold, these nations are like, okay, well, how about fuck you? Instead, we'll go make a deal with China and join the Belt and Road Initiative, which is offering us a way better deal in Africa and in Latin America and all over the world. And then you have American officials being like, why are all these countries joining the Belt and Road Initiative? I just don't know. I just don't get it. It must be because of Russian propaganda. I think that must be why. That's the only possible explanation. And these people are so brainwashed by their own horse shit that they can't see the obvious naked truth that's right in front of their faces. Anyway, let's hear more from this interview with Carl Shaw.
Not acceptable for them. So this is why they pushed for the Huawei ban. But it did not stop there, because they also asked, before the Huawei 5G phone, for example, they require U.S. components. For example, Qualcomm.
It's a neoliberal death spiral. There it is. It just feeds into it.
On Taiwan by the TSMC.
Feeds into itself.
The U.S. have told Qualcomm, no, you can't.
Well, we've only ever gotten people on our side by lying to them. That must be what they're doing. That's right. And then we have compatible leftists in the West being like, I agree. Yes, this is just imperialism. This is Chinese imperialism or Russian imperialism. Come on, folks. We got to be better. We got to do better.
Died for a couple of years because they're not able to get the chips. They were able to design domestically a chip to replace the Qualcomm chip, but they still don't have the manufacturing capability to actually making the chips.
Mediocre.
Like 90% of the world advanced semiconductor chip are the orders sent to Taiwan, and TSMC make them. And then Huawei cannot even, and TSMC, the semiconductor manufacturing is very complex process with very diversified global chains. For example, the TSMC, they also depend on other technology to make the chips. They depend on this machine called the EUV machine, the extreme ultraviolet lithography machine that use lasers to etch this like very small, tiny transistors on semiconductors. And so U.S. also asked Netherlands
Emperor's New Clothes. I know the feeling.
The Netherlands company ASML.
Not even American libs. Well, I mean, they are libs, I guess.
China.
But
so even Huawei want to make those
the anarchists, the social democrats,
using the ASML machines, they couldn't.
The ultra leftists.
So it's quite a shock when Huawei came out with this phone. So how they did it is there's two type of machines that ASML makes. One is called the DUV machine. It's called the deep ultraviolet machine, and the other one called the EUV machine, the extreme ultraviolet machine. The DUV is older technology, and that's why it's not on the sanction.
Yeah, and I agree.
Yet.
Ramuskin read.
So ASML can still sell to
even
Huawei.
the conservatives are liberals. It's just they're all neoliberals.
Until beginning of
just different flavors.
So Huawei is buying them in bulk. And what they have figured out is there was a process to make 7 nanometer chips using those older technology DUV machines. Taiwan actually figured out back in 2017, but it's an older technology, older method. It's not as efficient as using the DUV machines, but Huawei has no choice because they don't have access to ASML's latest UV machines. So they were able to replicate the process that TSMC used to make the 7 nanometer chips using the older DUV machines, but they were able to produce at a commercial scale. So people probably don't realize this. China spent $400 billion on chip imports before the U.S. chip ban. China spent more on chip imports than they spent importing oil. So now all that money is not coming to the United States. All that money is not going to the United States, not going to Netherlands, not going to Taiwan, or that $400 billion now going to research and development to make China's own indigenous method of manufacturing chips. So that's why they had this breakthrough. They will still have faced a little bit headwind because now latest iPhone is using like 3 nanometer chips from Taiwan. And to make that, you need the UV machines. I think China will eventually get it. Maybe it takes them 5 years. But for Huawei, it's a big breakthrough for the end consumers. They don't care whether you have 7 nanometer chips or 3 nanometer chips. As long as you provide the functionality, they're happy. And Huawei is able to do that.
Let's talk about this Wall Street Journal story also about Chinese spies infiltrating U.S. military bases and coming in and asking for a Burger King. And then also these military exercises. They're supposed to be teaming up with Russia on these joint military exercises as North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is set to travel to Russia via an armored train. That is the report today. So it seems that relationship is growing even more strong. What do you say about these Chinese spies infiltrating U.S. military bases? Angle, what do you know of this story?
Well, I hope they caught them. I mean, I read the report. It's very vague. They say there have been instances of Chinese tourists or claiming they're tourists trying to run past military installations looking for their hotel. So, if they're spies, I hope they caught them, prosecuted them, charged them. But the report didn't say, how many people were charged, arrested, or convicted. Yeah. It's just an anonymous official dropping this tip to Wall Street Journal saying that these are instances of Chinese tourists gate crashing, and they call it the gate crashers, and they said this is a very increasing phenomenon. So first of all, U.S. is liable. All these people protecting U.S. military sites are liable to keep those secret sites off limits to outsiders. So I hope they're doing their job. But what I think they're really doing is spreading the story in United States at the time when U.S. and China are trying to restore the people-to-people exchange after COVID, because now Gina Raimondo was in Beijing. One of the things she talked about was they're going to increase the travel between United States and China back to the pre-COVID levels and get more Chinese tourists to come to United States. It seems to me some people don't want that to happen. Some people don't like the increased people-to-people exchange, and they would rather keep that to the minimum. I mean, that's why we're seeing these stories right now. This is my take.
Also, I've had sources telling me over the weekend that they've seen real trouble in China, and I want to get your assessment of what's happening in the Chinese economy, because if the Chinese economy collapses, it's going to have massive reverberations around the world. And the photos that I'm seeing and sources that I'm hearing from who were in China this past week saying that it's in many ways unrecognizable to them. In Shanghai, for instance, I'm just going to share some photos here. They say normally going to Western restaurants, American-style restaurants, Starbucks, et cetera, is a bit of a status symbol thing to do. I don't know if that's correct or not, but in Shanghai, going to
no one's in Starbucks at Sunday at 7 a.m. China's economy is collapsing.
Walking around on a Sunday or on a Monday in Shanghai looks like a Sunday in Germany. I've heard it described, where there's very little traffic, very few people sort of wandering markets and foot traffic. So there are suggestions that the Chinese economy is in real trouble. What do you say about that?
So first of all,
it's always in trouble.
By reporter Michael Yong said his friend sent him that pictures. Mm-hmm. So some people pointed out that the area that they took the photo at is Lujiakou. It's a place that rarely gets a lot of traffic.
This is my leftover dinner from last night.
Monday. And because that was like a tourist area. And as for Western restaurant, it's true that Western restaurant was a status symbol in Shanghai 15 years ago. It's true. It was true 15 years ago. So it's not so much true today.
So going to like a TGI Fridays is not a great status symbol anymore.
No. Maybe back in 2000. But
yeah.
But you know,
it's like that Parenti quote when you talk about the churches, right? When the churches are full, that means that the people are bravely resisting the secular communist ideology. When the churches are empty, that's just a sign that it's on the verge of collapse and that, they're suppressing people's religious beliefs. It's the exact same kind of phenomenon, right? If the McDonald's are empty, it's on the verge of collapse. The whole economy is on the verge of collapse if the McDonald's are empty and the people are being subdued and forced to not partake in Western culture. If the McDonald's are full, then China's just a capitalist country and the people are rejecting the authoritarian regime's ways by going to these Western consumer products. Like, it's just, there's no way you can win,
China, there's a lot of people right now. There's a lot of expats now heading back to China after the COVID restriction have been lifted. People can go look on YouTube their travels in Shanghai to see, to see for firsthand experience what it's like. But having said that, China's economy is in real trouble. It is actually slowing down. This has been the most serious slowdown in China for decades, and this is true, including the high unemployment number for the youth from 16 to 24 age group. That's all true. This is one reason is because China is shifting away from the real estate driven investment, which has been driving the Chinese economy growth for decades. But it cannot go on forever because, we know how real estate bubble ended up in the United States back in 2008. And this is why that China is going through a hard time transitioning right now. But I think it's a cyclical downturn. It's not a secular downturn. From my conversation with my friends and families in China, everybody is doing fine. The tourism right now is actually not letting down. There's a lot of domestic tourists, but they're slowing. The real estate developers are in trouble in China. A lot of them are going bankrupt. So that's going to create a drag for the economy. And
excuse me. Yes, it's wise to deflate the real estate asset bubble in a controlled way, like they are. That's what I mean. We have this massive, in Canada especially, like we've been talking about. Our entire economy is based on this like highly commodified and financialized real estate market. And we can either just continue doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on that until it fucking explodes and destroys the country, or they've taken a look at these things and say, we are going to transition away from this intensely commodified real estate bubble, which is going to have economic consequences. But there's major consequences to doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on that exact kind of like highly financialized, highly commodified market. That's exactly why a market economy like this, that's being led by a communist party and all these state companies, it's better to have communist parties in charge of this kind of thing because they can take decisions that don't have the profit motive as the quarter by quarter profit motive as the primary motivation for why they're making these policies. They're not worried about the quarter by quarter profits of the real estate developers and the people and the landlords and the people in the housing market. They're worried about the long-term viability of their society and their civilization. We're concerned with quarter by quarter making the number go up for the elite ownership class. That's the fundamental difference here.
And this is also driven so some people running away from China to United States. So I'm sure some people have heard about Chinese refugees coming to U.S. Because Chinese economy is going through a hard time right now. That is true.
Yeah, I had a friend in Beijing saying that they've noticed a lot of small businesses troubled and closed he lives and works there. He is Chinese, and says that is the case. That there is some real troubling signs there, especially among young people as well. So, again, I'm really, of course, I think we're all worried about what happens with a massive Chinese slowdown, and when consumers in the United States are also knee deep in credit card debt. They're not buying. You're under this massive weight of sanctions. And so what can Americans buy at these massively increased prices? This could have massive implications around the globe if we see a massive Chinese slowdown. So, yeah, I am worried about it. I am absolutely worried about it. Do you think we will see some sort of normalization of trade with the United States and maybe greener pastures soon to come?
So Gina Raimondo just in Beijing recently, and she basically said, look, we're not going to budge on this U.S. sanction on the high-tech sectors, because that's national security reasons, but we are still willing to sell China the other less sophisticated goods. She was literally hawking like U.S. domestic cosmetic products in Beijing. So I mean, I think that's a message Gina Raimondo was sent there to convey. They will still continue business with China outside of those high-tech sector restrictions. Now, does that mean that there's going to be a restoration of ties? I don't know. I mean, like the decoupling, they have been returning it, de-risking. It is happening. Decoupling is already happening. For example, we already talked about the semiconductors, but even, U.S. has
Can't have World War III without decoupling.
Multinationals to move their supply chain outside of China. So but in the last few years, interesting fact about the trade statistics, the U.S. imports from the rest of the world keep on going up, but the Chinese export to United States is going down. So the rise in U.S. imports is coming from countries like Mexico and Vietnam. But if you look at the trade between China with Vietnam and Mexico, they're going skyrocketing. So what's really happening is all these Chinese goods now get exported to Vietnam and Mexico for the final assembly. So they get slapped on made in Mexico and made in Vietnam label, and re-exported to United States. And U.S. consumer just pay premium, that adds to the inflation.
Well, and the U.S. consumer can say, yeah, I don't get my stuff from China. Nike can say, yeah, we don't do our stuff in China anymore. Well, yeah, they do, but it's just done by proxy in Vietnam and the Philippines and other spots. But it's still
same thing with Russia,
basically coming from
natural
China.
gas.
This is the game, the shell game that they play here. So, well. Yeah. Very interesting. Thank you for helping us to unpack some of these headlines here, especially around the military spies invasion, as well as, well, I guess I didn't ask you here, but I'll get you out of here on this, Carl, which is on the military exercises, the Chinese and joint Russian military exercises. What do you make of that?
Right. So to related note, to talk about all the spy, including spy bloom and all that, people seem to forget we live in the age of satellites. The Chinese Beidou system have 45 active satellites in the sky, where the GPS only have 31 active satellites. I listened to a Taiwan journalist, Paul Wang, on the Manifold podcast a few weeks ago. Paul Wang said, any Taiwanese ballistic missile site, they will have a Chinese satellite flying over it every 20 minutes. So, I mean, do Chinese really need to fly a slow as balloon across America? I mean, okay. So, that aside,
no, they don't.
China and so Russia and North Korea has been getting closer because Russia is looking to source more weapons, conventional weapons from North Korea for their war effort, which is understandable because I was in Russia late June during the Prigozhin coup. One thing about Moscow, what I see is not a society that's mobilized for war. I mean, people who have seen my travel logs on my YouTube channel will see that. They will say, oh, this doesn't look like a country at war, which is true because Putin is calling this a special military operation because he's trying to do it with minimum disruption to average people's life. So this is why the Russian industry haven't really geared up for like a total war situation. So this is why they're looking to North Korea to source more weapons, conventional weapons, and North Korea has nothing to lose. They're already sanctioned by the United States. U.S. can't sanction North Korea anymore. But for the military exercise, China and Russia has been conducting the joint naval exercise in the Sea of Japan, and recently they just sailed across Alaska through the Aleutian Island chain. And now there's talk about North Korea will join the two to do a trilateral patrol.
Yeah, the balloon was memory hold fast because it was stupid, and it was stupid. Everyone that freaked the fuck out over it
So
was
now, we are seeing two blocks shaping up.
obviously humiliated for freaking out about this stupid bullshit story. So yeah, they memory hold it very fast.
South Korea on one side, and the other side we have China, Russia, and North Korea. So we live in interesting times, Clayton.
Yeah, we certainly do. And it's going to be interesting to see Europe's response in all of this, which is a place, that is on the verge of energy crisis as we enter in this winter period as well. So very interesting. Carl Zall, thank you so much for joining us here. Great to catch up with you, and thanks for diving into a bunch of these headlines today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Clayton. Thank you for inviting me.
So our thanks to Carl. We really appreciate it.
Great stuff. That was good. I don't even know what this show is. I've never heard of this. Europe's response will be whatever the U.S. tells them to say. I mean, that's one thing about the whole Ukraine conflict that I think, we've talked about it a lot, but really it's not even a U.S. war against Russia. It's a U.S. It's kind of a way for the U.S. to bring the EU to heel. The EU is kind of formed to become an economic bloc that couldn't be dominated by the U.S. as much. And it was really just a way to be like, no, you will have no energy independence. No, you will have no economic dependence. No, you will have no foreign policy independence. And really like bringing these EU countries like Germany and France to heel and being like, no, get on board, get on side here. The good old US of A. Defenders of freedom. It's a way to subjugate the EU, and the EU is turning heel like a dog. It's been quite embarrassing to watch, actually. Yes, I agree. And which, of course, has only empowered the far right in Germany and elsewhere. Because there's a large and a growing number of people in these populations that are like, wait, we don't want to be lapdogs to the US. Why are my energy prices going up? Because the US told us we were not allowed to buy gas from Russia. And lo and behold, it becomes like people like Marine Le Pen and these like far right parties in Germany that are making this case to people. And it's going to be a compelling case for many people, unfortunately. Turns out that subjugating people indeed drives nationalism. It's true. What a concept. What a crazy concept. Anyway, folks, that's it for this week. That's it for TRRS for this week. It was a great comeback week. The summer schedule is finished, settling back into a daily sort of routine with this show. It was a great week, though, and I really appreciate everyone that tuned in, that supported the show this week and every day. Thank you, folks. I will be back on Monday. And I got, like I said, I got a bunch of great shit planned next week, and I will work this out this weekend. And on Monday, I will have some actual concrete news to give you about this. But this week, Ben Clarkson and Matt Bors, who wrote Justice Warriors, they'll be joining the show. Ben Clarkson also did that really incredible blowback launch animation. Justice Warriors. They will be appearing on the program next week. Sound good? Great. It sounds good to me too. I'm going to raid Carpe Pax, who's a sometime chatter here. Haven't raided them before. Hope it goes okay. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, though. Did you say Matt Bohr is the guy who said, you said on an iPhone comic? That's right, yeah. That is right. They will both be joining the program. They will both be appearing on TRRS this week, or next week, sorry, rather. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. And plenty more great stuff coming up, folks. Season 4. It's going to be a season 4, 7 weeks away now. All kinds of wonderful discussions, some of the best guests, the best analysis, the best community, all of that and more in Season 4, TRRS Season 4. Wednesday, November 5th. Thanks again, friends. I'll talk to you in the Discord server, and I will be back. TRRS will return on Monday. Goodbye.